Welcome to Pondering the Orb. I'm your host, the wandering fantasy author Jay Requard, here to introduce you to some wonderful books, play some great music, and later on a dear friend stops by. Please subscribe to the channel below, and let's go on an adventure. Sometimes a book comes along that defines the modern age we live in some indelible ways, and *Sapiens* by Yuval Harari has done that. Setting out to write a narrative but correct history of the human species, this legitimate tome traces our origins from our pre-human ancestors and seeks to examine our development as a species as we interacted with our first environments, built our first economies, and educated ourselves on the ontological nature of reality around us to draw out the first epistemologies. This book is an attempt at a complete, nuanced, and fair telling. Is it perfect for a book published in 2011? No, because a lot has changed, and Harari himself would admit that. However, this show is devoted to helping authors build better worlds, and few books lay out the history of humanity's impact like this one does. This book will make you think and rethink many of your opinions and suppositions about the world and how you view it, and when it comes to learning how to build more compelling settings, this is a needed exercise. Read it once, let it sink in, and then read it again. This is Yuval Harari's *Sapiens*. *Sapiens* by Yuval Noah Harari. Part 1. The Cognitive Revolution. Chapter 1. An Animal of No Significance. About 13.5 billion years ago, matter, energy, time, and space came into being in what is known as the Big Bang. The story of these fundamental features of our universe is called physics. About 300,000 years ago after their appearance, matter and energy started to coalesce into complex structures, called atoms, which then combined into molecules. The story of atoms, molecules, and their interactions is called chemistry. About 13.8 billion years ago, on a planet called Earth, certain molecules combined to form particularly large and intricate structures called organisms. The study of organisms is called biology. About 70,000 years ago, organisms belonging to the species Homo sapiens started to form even more elaborate structures called cultures. The subsequent development of these human cultures is called history. Three important revolutions shaped the course of history. The cognitive revolution kick-started history about 70,000 years ago. The agricultural revolution sped it up about 10,000 years ago. The scientific revolution, which got underway only 500 years ago, may well end history and start something completely different. This book tells the story of how these three revolutions have affected humans and their fellow organisms. There were humans long before there was history. Animals like modern humans first appeared about 2.5 million years ago, but for countless generations they did not stand out from the myriad other organisms which they shared their habitats. On a hike in East Africa 2 million years ago, you might well have encountered a familiar cast of human characters. Anxious mothers cuddling their babies in the clutches of carefree children playing in the mud, temperamental youths chafing against the dictates of society, and weary elders who just wanted to be left in peace, chest-thumping machos trying to impress the local beauty, and wise old matriarchs who had already seen it all. These archaic humans loved, played, formed close relationships, and competed for status and power, but so did chimpanzees, baboons, and elephants. There was nothing special about humans. Nobody, least of all humans themselves, had any inkling that their descendants would one day walk on the moon, split the atom, fathom the genetic code, and write history books. The most important thing to know about prehistoric humans is that they were insignificant animals with no more impact on their environment than gorillas, fireflies, or jellyfish. Biologists classify organisms into species. Animals are said to belong to the same species if they tend to mate with each other, giving birth to fertile offspring. Horses and donkeys have a recent common ancestor and share many physical traits, but they show little sexual interest in one another. They will mate if induced to do so, but their offspring, called mules, are sterile. Mutations in donkey DNA can therefore never cross over to horses, or vice versa. The two types of animals are consequently considered two distinct species, moving along separate evolutionary paths. By contrast, a bulldog and a spaniel may look very different, but they are members of the same species, sharing the same DNA pool. They will happily mate and their puppies will grow up to pair off with other dogs and produce more puppies. Species that evolve from a common ancestor are bunched together under the heading genus, plural of genera. Lions, tigers, leopards, and jaguars are different species within the genus Panthera. Biologists label organisms with a two-part Latin name, genus followed by species. Lions, for example, are called Panthera leo. The species Leo is the genus of Panthera. Presumably, everyone reading this book is a Homo sapiens. The species Sapiens, Weiss, of the genus Homo, man. Genera in their turn are grouped into families, such as the cats, lions, cheetahs, house cats, the dogs, wolves, foxes, jackals, and the elephants, mammoths, mastodons. All members of a family trace their lineage back to a founding matriarch or patriarch. All cats, for example, from the smallest house kitten to the most ferocious lion, share a common feline ancestor who lived about 25 million years ago. Homo sapiens, too, belongs to a family. This banal fact used to be one of history's most closely guarded secrets. Homo sapiens long preferred to view itself as set apart from animals, an orphan bereft of family, lacking siblings or cousins, and most importantly, without parents. But that's just not the case. Like it or not, we are members of a large and particularly noisy family called the Great Apes. Our closest living relatives include chimpanzees, gorillas, and orangutans. The chimpanzees are the closest. Just 6 million years ago, a single female ape had two daughters. One became the ancestor of all chimpanzees. The other is our own grandmother. Written between the short years of 1984 and 1985, no one knew that when Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman would come together, they forged one of the most enduring epic fantasies of all time. The Dragonlance Chronicles, while derivative, not only gave an introduction to the vibrant world of Krynn, but also introduced a whole new generation of fans to deep, enthralling characters. When the dark goddess of the dragons, Takhisis, sets her winged monsters upon the world, a new band of adventurers takes up the quest to defeat her before their doom is complete. There's nothing these books did that were revolutionary. By the time 1984 came around, there were already half-elven rangers, and damsels in distress proving themselves to be more, and dark, dark evil abounded. But what Dragonlance does, so brilliantly, is render its tale into 3 breathing, living novels you cannot miss. Starting with Dragons of Autumn Twilight, its sequel Dragons of Winter Night, and the finale Dragons of Spring Dawning, this is a classic series you really have to read. Go and read these because they are beautiful, fun, and authentic. The Dragonlance Chronicles by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. Dragons of Autumn Twilight. Canticle of the Dragon. Hear the sage as his song descends, like heaven's rain or tears, and washes the years, the dust of the many stories, from the high tale of the Dragonlance. For in ages deep past memory and word, in the first blush of the world, when the 3 moons rose from the lap of the forest, dragons, terrible and great, made war on this world of Krynn. Yet out of the darkness of dragons, out of our cries for light, in the blank face of the black moon soaring, a banked light flared in Solemnia, a knight of truth and of power, who called down the gods themselves and forged the mighty Dragonlance, piercing the soul of dragonkind, driving the shade of their wings from the brightening shores of Krynn. Thus Huma, knight of Solemnia, Lightbringer, first lancer, followed his light to the foot of Calchas mountain, to the stone feet of the gods, to the crouched silence of their temple. He called down the lance-makers. He took on their unspeakable power to crush the unspeakable evil, to thrust the coiling darkness back down the tunnel of the dragon's throat. Paladine, the great god of good, shone at the side of Huma, strengthening the lance of his strong right arm, and Huma, ablaze in 1,000 moons, banished the queen of darkness, banished the swarm of her shrieking host, back to the senseless kingdom of death, where their curses swooped upon nothing and nothing, deep below the brightening land. Thus ended in thunder the age of dreams, and began the age of might, when Ishtar, kingdom of light and truth, arose in the east, where minarets of white and gold spired to the sun and to the sun's glories, announcing the passing of evil, and Ishtar, who mothered and cradled the long summers of good, shone like a meteor in the white skies of the just. Yet in the fullness of sunlight, the king-priest of Ishtar saw shadows. At night he saw the trees as things with daggers, the streams blackened and thickened under the silent moon. He searched the books for the paths of Huma, for scrolls, signs, and spells, so that he too might summon the gods, might find their aid in his holy aims, might purge the world of sin. Then came the time of dark and death as the gods turned from the world. A mountain of fire crashed like a comet through Ishtar. The city split like a skull in the flames. Mountains burst from the once fertile valleys. Seas poured into the graves of mountains. The desert sighed on abandoned floors of seas. The highways of Kryn erupted and became the paths of the dead. Thus began the age of despair. The roads were tangled. The winds and the sandstorms dwelt in the husk of cities. The plains and the mountains became our home. And the old gods lost their power. We called to the blank sky and to the cold, dividing gray to the ears of the new gods. The sky is calm, silent, unmoving. We have yet to hear their answer. The Old Man. Teagle Whalen straightened her back with a sigh, flexing her shoulders to ease her cramped muscles. She tossed the soapy bar rag into the water pail and glanced around the empty room. It was getting harder to keep up the old inn. There was a lot of love rubbed into the warm finish of the wood, but even love and tallow couldn't hide the cracks and splits in the well-used tables or prevent a customer from sitting on an occasional splinter. The end of the last home was not fancy, not like some she had heard about in Haven. It was comfortable. The living tree in which it was built wrapped its ancient arms around it lovingly, while the walls and fixtures were crafted around the boughs of the tree with such care to make it impossible to tell where nature's work left off and man's began. The bar seemed to ebb and flow like a polished wave around the living wood that supported it. The stained glass in the window panes cast welcoming flashes of vibrant color across the room. Shadows were dwindling as noon approached. The end of the last home would soon open for business. Tika looked around and smiled in satisfaction. The tables were clean and polished. All she had left to do was sweep the floor. She began to shove aside the heavy wooden benches as Otik emerged from the kitchen, enveloped in fragrant steam. "Should be another brisk day, both for the weather and business," he said, squeezing his stout belly behind the bar. He began to set out mugs, whistling cheerfully. "I like the business cooler and the weather warmer," said Tika, tugging at a bench. "I walked my feet off yesterday and got little thanks and less tips. Such a gloomy crowd. Everybody nervous, jumping at every sound. I dropped a mug last night, and I swear, Retark drew his sword." "Pah!" Otik snorted. "Retark's a Solace Seeker guard. They're always nervous. You would be too if you had to work for Hederic. That Watch it," Tika warned. Otik shrugged. "Unless the High Theocrat can fly now, he won't be listening to us. I'd hear his boots on the stairs before he could hear me." But Tika noticed he lowered his voice as he continued. "The residents of Solace won't put up with much more, mark my words. People disappearing, being dragged off to who knows where. It's a sad time." He shook his head. Then he brightened. "But it's good for business." "Until he closes us down," Tika said gloomily. She grabbed the broom and began to sweep briskly. "Even theocrats need to fill their bellies and wash the fire and brimstone from their throats," Otik chuckled. "It must be thirsty work, haranguing people about the new gods day in and day out. And he's in here every night." Tika stopped her sweeping and leaned against the bar. "Otik," she said, her voice subdued. "There's other talk, too. Talk of war. Armies massing in the north. And there are these strange hooded men in town, hanging around with the High Theocrat, asking questions." Otik looked at the 19-year-old girl fondly, reached out, and patted her cheek. He had been father to her, ever since her own had vanished so mysteriously. He tweaked her red curls. "War. Pooh. There's been talk of war ever since the Cataclysm. It's just talk, girl. Maybe the Theocrat makes it up just to keep people in line." "I don't know." Tika frowned. The door opened. Both Tika and Otik started in alarm and turned to the door. They had not heard footsteps on the stairs, and that was uncanny. The end of the last home was built high in the branches of a mighty Valenwood tree, as was every other building in Solace, with the exception of the blacksmith shop. The townspeople decided to take to the trees during the terror and chaos following the Cataclysm, and thus Solace became a tree town, one of the few truly beautiful wonders left on Kryn. Sturdy wood bridge walks connected the houses and businesses perched high above the ground, where 500 people went about their daily lives. The inn of the last home was the largest building in Solace, and stood 40 feet off the ground. Stairs ran around the ancient Valenwood's gnarled trunk. As Otik had said, any visitor to the end would be heard approaching long before he was seen. But neither Tika nor Otik had heard the old man. He stood in the doorway, leaning on a worn oak staff, and peered around the inn. The tattered hood of his plain gray robe was drawn over his head, its shadow obscuring the features of his face except for his hawkish, shining eyes. "Can I help you, old one?" Tika asked the stranger, exchanging worried glances with Otik. Was this old man a secret spy? Eh. The old man blinked. "You open?" Well, Tika hesitated. "Certainly," Otik said, smiling broadly. "Come in, Greybeard. Tika, find our guest a chair. He must be tired after that long climb." "Climb?" Scratching his head, the old man glanced around the porch, then looked down to the ground below. "Oh, yes, climb. A great many stairs." He hobbled inside, then made a playful swipe at Tika with his staff. "Get along with your work, girl. I'm capable of finding my own chair." Tika shrugged, reached for her broom, and began sweeping, keeping her eyes on the old man. He stood in the center of the inn, peering around as though confirming the location and position of each table and chair in the room. The common room was large and bean-shaped, wrapping around the trunk of the Valenwood. The tree's smaller limbs supported the floor and the ceiling. He looked with particular interest at the fireplace, which stood about 3/4 of the way back into the room. The only stonework in the end, it was obviously crafted by dwarven hands to appear to be part of the tree, winding naturally through the branches above. A bed next to the side of the fire pit was stacked high with cordwood and pine logs brought down from the high mountains. No resident of Solace would ever consider burning the wood of their own great tree. There was a back route to the kitchen. It was a 40-foot drop, but a few of Otik's customers found this setup very convenient. So did the old man. He muttered satisfied comments to himself as his eyes went from one area to another. Then, to Tika's astonishment, he suddenly dropped his staff, hitched up the sleeves of his robe, and began rearranging the furniture. Tika stopped sweeping and leaned on her broom. "What are you doing? That table's always been there." A long, narrow table stood in the center of the common room. The old man dragged it across the floor and shoved it up against the trunk of the huge Valenwood, right across the fire pit, then stepped back to admire his work. "There," he grunted. "It's supposed to be closer to the fire pit. Now bring over 2 more chairs. Need 6 around here." Tika turned to Otik. He seemed about to protest, but, at the same moment, there was a flaring light from the kitchen. A scream from the cook indicated the grease had caught fire again. Otik hurried toward the swinging kitchen doors. "He's harmless," he puffed as he passed Tika. "Let him do what he wants. Within reason. Maybe he's throwing a party." Tika sighed and took 2 chairs over to the old man as requested. She set them where he indicated. "Now," the old man said, glancing around sharply, "bring 2 more chairs. Comfortable ones, mind you. Over here. Put them next to the fire pit, in this shadowy corner." "'Tisn't shadowy," Tika protested. "It's sitting in full daylight." "Ah," the old man's eyes narrowed. "But it will be shadowy tonight, won't it, when the fire's lit?" I suppose so," Tika faltered. "Bring chairs. That's a good girl. And I want one. Right here." The old man gestured at a spot in front of the fire pit. "For me." "Are you giving a party, old one?" Tika asked as she carried over the most comfortable, well-worn chair in the inn. "A party?" The thought seemed to strike the old man as funny. He chuckled. "Yes, girl. It will be a party such as the world of Kryn has not seen since before the Cataclysm. Be ready, Tika Whalen. Be ready." He patted her shoulder, tousled her hair, then turned and lowered himself, bones creaking, into the chair. "A mug of ale," he ordered. Tika went to pour the ale. It wasn't until after she brought the old man his drink and gone back to her sweeping that she stopped, wondering how he knew her name. Our first synthwave selection comes from an up-and-coming composer everyone should keep their ears out for. Overcrest first caught my attention with his collaboration with longtime friend of the show, Decisive Koala, when they released their 2021 single, Solstice. Since then, he has continued to hone his craft, prepare for his first album, and as a fellow child of the South, this Arkansas native just added another addition to his family. This show, in part, is all about our little ones. So it is with great joy to play this song from Overcrest's 2022 release, Mist and Wonder. This track is called Wonder. Bless him, bless you, and please enjoy. Last episode, Decisive Koala was our first guest to appear a second time on Pondering the Orb. This will be our first melodic death metal band to make their second round here on the show. Without a doubt, when we think of modern metal in 2023, few bands resound like Exjo Sweden's Orbit Culture. Making their tours with founding members of the genre In Flames, stellar appearances at multiple festivals, and a catalog of certifiable quality second to none, it is without question this is one of the hottest bands in the entire genre of heavy metal. Always kind to make their presence known here on Pondering the Orb, this is Orbit Culture with the North Star of Nija from their 2020 release, Nija. Remember, you are here where you need to be. Honestly, I just wanted to talk to someone and it not just be an interview. Sure, I ask a lot of questions, but there's an openness and honesty to writer, actor, programmer, and my webmaster, Aaron Tolliver, that yields itself to fluid, honest, and moving conversation. The first interview of 2023 is with one of my best friends and someone with a keen insight into so many things in pop culture, cyberspace, and the digital frontier. Expect to see him again. This is Aaron Tolliver joining me for Pondering the Orb. And then,
Got it.
everyone, welcome to Pondering the Orb. Of course, I'm the wandering fantasy author Jay Requard, but with me I have uh, arguably my webmaster, an actor, a writer, a dancer, someone who keeps well in touch with so many things, and also one of my best friends in the world, Aaron Tolliver. How are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing well, good sir. How are you?
I
What an
I
intro. I feel like I need some Titantron music or something. It
so
feels good. It feels good.
let's start right there. Um, there's two places that we can start talking. We can start talking about AI, or we can talk about AEW in 2022. Where do you want to go?
AEW and WWE in 2022. Was that not like a season of succession with WWE? And then
I Okay, so
just like
let's just jump right into it. Let's just jump right into pro wrestling. How do you
yeah, let's
feel
do it.
about how do you feel about Vince coming back the way he is with the pointed objective of like we're going to sell this thing? It comes across to me as a little bitter. What do you think?
It is absolutely bitter. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure. And it's probably because what he did is not a lie,
Yeah.
but it could not
And
have
there's
happened.
more.
Yeah, there's a lot more,
Yeah.
but it was brought forward by someone that he trusted.
Yes.
I guarantee that. Someone that he trusted and someone who's benefited from his absence. That's a long list of people.
Yeah.
And, you know, I feel like he's the type of guy that, like, if you don't pry that company from his cold, dead fingers, he's not going to respect you for it.
Right.
And
Right.
someone did, but he's not dead. So,
Right.
all due respect, he's going to try to get it back. So, that was that's just man. Yeah, I got a lot of friends that have been watching Succession on HBO, and I'm like, yeah, well, here's a real edition
Yeah.
of it right here. Like, look at this shit.
It's
you
been
know?
fascinating. Where do you think they sell to? I think the obvious place that they go to is probably NBC Universal because Peacock's already hosting the events and I think most of the TV.
Yeah, and NBC Universal needs it
Yeah,
more than anyone else, Um Disney doesn't need it. They're fine. Um
surprisingly.
yeah, and I'm saying that in a relative sense, not necessarily like, a critical sense.
Right.
Um you know, uh Fox is not in the entertainment industry anymore. Well, not in the fictional entertainment industry anymore. Um, you know, Netflix don't know if they can afford it right now.
I don't
Um,
know if Netflix would know what to do with it
well,
because they
they
had Lucha
probably just
Underground for a little bit and they
they
just didn't
did.
know
They
what
did.
they
They
didn't know what to do
absolutely.
with that.
And I mean, I'm looking at any other competitor. CBS, nah,
Yeah.
nah. And what's that Paramount Plus kind of thing? It's
It,
not
well,
gonna.
well, they're going. CBS is really focused on that Paramount Plus app since it's become so successful. But like you said, where does WWE really fit into that portfolio?
Yeah, it doesn't really fit in anywhere except for NBC Universal because they have it fitting somewhere already, you know. And if they do get it, I mean, no matter who gets it, whoever's in management is not going to be going anywhere. So
Right.
that's the thing that I'm not too concerned about if the company gets sold. If Levesque and Stephanie and the people that are there right now manage to survive whatever Vince does, they're still going to be running things. And I
Yes.
think that's what's most important. And that's just a very high likelihood. It's not something that, like, some shit could go wrong, but like they're doing such an amazing job right now, and ratings are reflecting that for the most part,
Hmm.
you know, and
If those ratings, if those mean anything anymore.
I mean, just to a bunch of those old heads that are running the show, they still do,
Right.
you got people at NBC Universal running the USA Network, and that still matters. That's still a part of their job metrics. You know,
Right.
they can talk about Nielsen Plus. They can do all of these things to try to justify the existence of something. Some shareholder, some old person is always going to be like, but the ratings though,
Yeah.
people aren't watching it live, you know, and so they still, a lot of people's jobs still depend on that old metric, you know.
Right.
But man, oh man, Roman,
Uh,
Sammy,
one of the most tremendous Roman just by himself has turned into one of the most tremendous performers and actors on the show. That is really something. And like Sammy's a great performer too, but I just watched SmackDown last night, and when Roman just kind of turned on him and like let loose and was talking about you want to be me, and I was just sitting there like, whoa, this guy can
it
just,
was really good stuff.
yeah.
Really
Do
good
you
stuff. And I remember at the beginning of this when he came back and we were still in the middle of COVID, and he
right?
was getting the Usos on board. And there were some really good moments where he was working from a place of real authenticity that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, I remember there was an episode where he basically gaslit Jay
Yes.
from, like, you know, and he was just talking about, like, this is our family, man. This is what we do. This is all we can do. And like, it is, he's like, he was in a desperate place, and that the top is the only place that he can be to feel respected, and that cage match with Jimmy,
Yes.
where he is, or was that with Jay? I can't
It was
remember.
with
But
Jay, and then Jimmy comes in and saves
Jimmy
him at the
comes
last
in
moment.
and he stops and he is in tears in the ring,
Yeah.
and then he flips it on him, puts the man in the guillotine,
People
and
can't see
just,
it, but there's
man,
goosebumps right here.
just it was amazing stuff. It was amazing stuff. And
Yeah.
and with AEW being where it is right now, you've got two products for two different tastes.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them, in my opinion, firing on as close to all cylinders as they can, you
Yes.
know, even in spite of the controversies that AEW went through this past year, you know, um, it still works out pretty well. I think they're still both doing something very special right now in terms of that form of storytelling.
Who do you think is the best performer right now in WWE versus AEW?
AEW, I will begrudgingly say MJF.
Why begrudgingly?
I need that man to win clean
Ah, okay. Yeah.
against someone, against a decent caliber, wrestler on his level. I do remember, was it Yuta Wheeler that he went up against a few
Yes.
months ago?
Yeah.
That was an amazing match.
Yeah.
And I think we need a reminder that the man can actually wrestle
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more frequently, so that he has the flexibility to switch from the scheming heel to just the heel who
Yes.
can just win, right? I need him to win more matches just because it allows him that future flexibility, right? And he can stay exactly where he is, which is on top, you know.
Well, he did an interview with Sam Roberts, and I thought it was interesting where he said, "I'm a feature attraction like Andre the Giant," and it was kind of a weird moment for me because I'm a decent MJF fan, but the issue with me with MJF when he says like I'm Andre the Giant, I think he forgets like before Andre got that back injury, Andre fucking worked
He
everywhere.
worked all the time.
And that's the
Yeah.
thing. Like, if you go on YouTube, there are so many matches of Andre before, like, his last big run in the WWF
Mm-hmm.
before Mania 3. That's like you said, you have to go out there and wrestle. There has to be a lot of tape on you to, like, really show people that, like, yeah, this is the guy. The,
Yeah.
the, the hard thing for me with MJF, like, I'm a fan of him chase. It's the weirdest thing because usually with baby faces, we're fans of them chasing the gold.
Yeah.
But I think we became fans of a heel chasing the gold in MJF because he's a heel that we love to hate. I think
Yeah.
the problem now is like he can't necessarily be Ric Flair because like the pinnacle's gone. Like a lot of those guys aren't coming back on TV.
Mm-mm.
And at the same time, like
And
who do
rightfully
you
so.
yeah, yes. Um who do you keep jobbing out to him before he has to give up that belt? Because like like if him and Kenny Omega after him and Brian Danielson are the next program, let's say Brian Danielson doesn't win, which another world title opportunity that Brian Danielson's lost, it brings up some
Yeah,
questions now.
it's not as easy. Yeah, it's not a good look, and it's not time to take it off of. It's not time to take it off of MJF. You know,
Yeah,
so I don't know what
like
I think.
do you job Kenny Omega to MJF? Like I
Well,
ugh.
you know,
It starts becoming a really hard question about who MJF beats to keep holding on to that belt.
well, my definition of job, is just absolute squash, right? It's not going to be
Ah,
an absolute squash for either one of those guys. They
right.
can come out looking good, but you know, for Danielson, right? It's going to be much harder for him to come out looking good with the audience wondering why he doesn't have anything around his waist for the
At this
longest
point.
time.
Yeah.
By now, like he should have had that title. He should have
Well,
had something, some gold, you know,
I
and
think he goes back to ROH at some point. Like I think that feels like that's the automatic place where he probably wins the belt, like he wrestles Claudio or something like that, but ROH always feels like kind of the destination point for him too.
yeah, and I don't know if I agree with that.
Yeah.
I just it's it's just a little bit too crowded at the top at AEW right now. The way that it used to be a little bit too crowded in WWE for a while,
Do
and
you
then they
not
let all
feel
those
it's
people.
you don't feel like it's crowded in WWE right now?
No, and
Okay,
it's
so
mostly because of that of the bloodline monopoly that it's not crowded at the top.
that's fair.
They might end up having a problem with you know them facing off this against the same opponents. We've seen the Brawling Brutes how many times now,
Oh, they're
right?
called the Banger Brothers now.
Oh, they're the Banger Brothers.
They're called the Banger Brothers. I'm not happy
That's
about
gross.
it. It's
That's
gross.
gross.
It's real gross.
What website was someone looking at
It was off
on
WWE's
incognito mode?
it was off WWE's website. Like it was in their
Uh-huh.
press release
Uh-huh.
for it.
So one of these marketing geniuses has been browsing on incognito mode. That's what I'm hearing right now. Banger Bros.
Yeah. Oh god, it's Bang Bus. Um, uh,
if they,
I
if there
mean,
if there's a tag team move called the bus, you
oh, Jesus. Sip a beer for the working man.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry,
But
guys. This is a family show. My bad. My bad. My bad.
this is not a family show.
No,
Uh,
it's not.
no.
Put them kids to sleep.
I will say this. AEW, the guy who was supposed to replace Kevin Dunn as the production head, I think his name's Michael Mancusi or something.
Mm-hmm.
He went to AEW and the show looks amazing. And on top of that, like, I don't know, man. I keep thinking that Tony Khan can't, at some point, like the wheels fall off of his booking strategy, but this guy keeps booking great episodes of Dynamite.
He's doing all right, but in every now and then his inexperience shows, you know,
Yes.
and when it was him versus Vince, I would have taken Tony over Vince any day, but now
Do,
it's him versus
do
Triple
you
H.
do you
And
think
that's
that
when
I
the
don't think that that's
competition was
fair.
good.
I don't think that that's fair because it was NXT versus Dynamite on Wednesdays. So
Dynamite
technically,
won.
but it was technically Hunter versus Tony. And technically we have Hunter versus Tony now.
Yes, but Hunter with the shackles off.
True. Okay,
And
so
Hunter with two shows, just like, well, with three shows, just like, you know, Khan kind of has three shows if you're counting Dark, right? If you're counting,
I want to
I
count
don't know.
Dark, but Dark is such a waste of what it could be.
Yeah.
Kenny Omega showed up on Dark, I think like last week out of nowhere, and wrestled like some kid from Japan, and it
And
was
see, this
great.
is why it's not what it could be. I had no idea. I had no
So,
idea.
so my old idea for a booking strategy, like if I ever got a job with AEW, like each one of these shows should have its own storylines. Like it shouldn't just be throwaway matches and guys squashing other guys. Like it should be like, okay, here's our tier of tag teams here. Here's our, AEW Dark champion. Here's our AEW Dark Women's champion that goes on to face like Jade Cargill or something. Or that's where you can have all the women face off to fight Jade Cargill.
Mm-hmm.
Because you need to feed her something somewhere. Like you can't just start throwing baddies at her. It's not working. And then they dropped the Bow Wow storyline, but anyway.
I feel like that was just something that she wanted to do, and it's just something that was like pretty fun, and I was okay with it. But that the crazy part is just like, when it comes to you know wrestling in a narrative perspective, perfect pacing is almost built in there.
Yes.
You know, you if you are someone who is story you're folk narrative minded, if you're an aspiring author,
Mm-hmm.
or screenwriter, or anything like that, just go and find like a supercut of just some of these storylines,
Oh,
and know that each of these are happening once a week or twice a week in 5-minute segments or less, right?
yes.
And just the way that they have had to build that muscle around that kind of pacing,
Mm.
it teaches so many lessons for anyone who wants to to write fiction,
Well,
or just bring about fiction in any sense of the word.
like also character development, like kind of touching on Jade Cargill for a
Mhm.
minute. Like, I don't think that she's the second coming of China. I think she's the first coming of Jade Cargill. Um, green is goose shit in the beginning, but much better in the ring now. And now that we're getting close to her being 50-0, if she can get there, because I think they're setting her up for a red velvet. Um, if she can get to 50-0, she has built this character out of nothing, and given the opportunities that she's had with starting off with a relatively limited in-ring skill set and really building that out too. and just being this tremendous
is,
athlete, like
yeah.
she has real star power. And it's because, like you said, there's been this narrative muscle kind of built around her
Hmm.
to where like you didn't have to be at the beginning of her storyline to just know that like Jade Cargill is getting close to 50 and 0. She's 48 and 0. She's 49 and 0. She's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
people get in the streaks, and when you see someone like her, like instant star. You can't look
Yeah.
away.
She's amazing, you know, and when it comes to her learning how to tell a story physically in the ring, like that has been just a joy to watch, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Um from week to week, from month to month, you're just
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, she's working this out. She's, you know, getting the start. It's not too much energy, right? And get that rising action, the climax, and then the denouement. You know, she's just
Yes.
she's learning, and now she can handle it with the best of the ladies. She can handle it with the best of anybody in AEW, point blank, period, when it comes to putting on a good physical story in the ring, you know.
How do you
I
think she would do in WWE if she were to go over there? Do you think that that would be a better climate for her? Do you think that she's the kind of star that would transition bigger? Because I would argue that like Bianca Belair is clearly better in the ring than her, and Bianca Belair is clearly becoming a star. Um, do you think Jade Cargill has the potential to be that star?
Through no fault of her own, no.
Interesting.
I don't know if even with even with the people there that are there right now, I don't know if they are capable of seeing Jade Cargill as anything other than a foil for Bianca.
Mm, yeah.
I don't know if they would be able to imagine anything that is uniquely for her, something that is self defining, you know. Um, and it would take some time. I think it would eventually happen, but how long do you want to have her sitting there in the women's mid card, you know? And technically, she's in kind of the women's mid card right now, but she's
Yes.
blowing it out of the water to the point that it's not the women's mid card. Like
Well,
when
like
I think about like the ladies of AEW, I don't care about Paige. I care about Jade Cargill. I love Paige. I love Paige. I love Miss DMD. I love them all. They're doing good work with what Tony gives them,
yes.
but Jade's killing it right now. And I don't know if she would have that space to make that work, you know. Um
It's also hard because it feels like the TBS title is almost tailor made for her. And once you take it off of her, like what is it without her? And kind of going off that, like she either rematches for the TBS title because she's like, that's my belt, or she's like, fuck this thing. I'm the baddest bitch on the planet. It's time for me to go and get the AEW world belt or the world title.
that's
Like,
my hope.
well, like, do you
Give her 50 and 0, then take that belt off of her and then move her into where she should be, which
do you put
is
do you put her over Jamie Hayter?
yes.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for saying that out loud.
Now, look,
I
it's not gonna it's gonna be a good fight. It's gonna be a good program. It's gonna be an amazing program, and she doesn't need to go over Hater immediately. You know, not in like
in
just the first match or anything like that. We could stress this out. We could make them both look good by the end of this, right?
Yeah, I don't think that they could do like a best of seven, but I think that you could get them to do
Are
like
you
a
sure?
return. They could do the bet. I think that they could do three. They could do the first match. They could do a return, and then they could do the rubber match. But
Yeah.
like, I the thing for me with Jamie Hayter is that like it feels it almost I'm going to get so much heel heat for this. Um it almost feels like fan service giving her the belt a little bit. It almost feels like, if the fans at AEW weren't so fervent about her, you could put it back on Britt Baker, and arguably Britt Baker would be a better holder of it. I think that you could put it on like we've been talking about Jade Cargill, and Jade Cargill would actually, I think, amplify that belt a little bit more. I actually think people know more about the TBS belt than they actually do about the AEW Women's World Title.
I wouldn't be surprised if they did. But uh
But we might know more about Jade Cargill than we actually do about the TBS belt too. Like
yeah, see,
she's that transit.
it might just be her, but that's not a bad thing. Someone can the next two ladies that have it, um, they can really keep it going. They can really
Right.
make it work. They just gotta have the time. They've got to have the time. And the problem that they've got right now is that they've got too many people and not enough time. And I
So
feel like it's just like this pendulum effect that we're now going to be seeing, where one big company lets everybody go, the other company signs them. And then it just goes back in the other direction. And you'll hear on, Twitter, you'll hear on like social media, wrestlers complaining about not having enough time, or not getting TV time or something like that. And their fans complaining about them. Like, this is going to keep happening, people. And
may I
it's
make an
gonna
argument?
happen when Cargill loses that championship. That
I
they
agree.
she won't there whoever has that belt afterwards will have a serious struggle for TV time, because it's
Yes.
just her. And I think that's one of the biggest problems is like, just you got to give some more space for some more people. We now know Jade now. We got her.
Right.
Okay. She can take some less time in the next like couple of months and let someone else really step into that side
She
spotlight. Not the spotlight, but like a little side spotlight.
the way she gets around is that she needs to start doing what Jamie Hayter's doing. And even though I think that Jamie Hayter's there for fan service, like she has great matches, like way better matches than Jade Cargill has.
Yeah.
Just by the nature of him. If Jade could have a match on the level of Jamie Hayter, I think we would be having a different conversation. But I think you're also right. Like, it's going to be very crowded too. And this gets into another issue. We're going to have another Forbidden Door pay per view. And at that point, I don't see how Mercedes Monet doesn't walk onto the scene, and what happens then. Because like we keep talking about Jade Cargill, but you know Mercedes Monet's out there now, and
Yeah.
Paige is out there now, or Soraya's
Yeah.
out there now.
Oh yeah,
There's
her name's Soraya now. I'm sorry. I called
um
her Paige a few minutes ago.
man, I don't blame you. JR calls her Paige all the time. he JR's a gym on that show. But there's so many great women. I think one thing that happens this year is that this is the year we finally start to see like women just have 5-star matches after 5-star matches after 5-star matches. Like I have a feeling like after some of the matches we had at the end of 2022 with women, that 2023 might be that year that like they really break out and start having like those kind of like holy shit matches we've never imagined. Like the we have a generation of women wrestlers now that are acclimatized to like the style of wrestling that we all kind of expect.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this is the year they really kind of hit us with how good they are.
It's kind of weird. It's kind of a small scale repeat of the women in WWE when they were suddenly given the time that they needed,
Yes.
because they learned, because of like the limited time that they had to begin with, they learned how to be succinct and effective with the little time that they had.
Right.
And then they were given 15 minutes or
Right.
20 minutes and they blew it out of the water, right?
Do you remember the Money in the Bank? It was it was at WWE headquarters. It was like in they filmed it. It was one of the cinematic matches. It was Money in the Bank. The briefcase was at the very top of WWE
Oh, I didn't see that
headquarters,
one. I didn't
and there
see
was
that.
like six of the women. It's great. And
Yeah,
like the
I didn't.
men's match is happening at the same time, and they're like running into each other and
Yeah.
everything. Like it's
I saw
fantastic.
clips of it, but I never got to see the whole match, like in
Well,
its entirety.
it gets to what you're saying. Like during the pandemic, they suddenly were allowed like 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
They were suddenly allowed a lot of time.
But
Daniel
like even
Bryan and
before
I
that,
was, yeah,
the four horsewomen of the WWE were trained in a way like HBK and all those people were like, you might not have we're gonna train you like you don't have the time that we would have, you know.
right.
So that's why those four in particular, along with Bliss, you know,
Yeah.
they were able to, really tell an effective story. And then when the when the disadvantage was gone and they were given more time, like they were just like, well, we've been training with weights, so now we're like Super Saiyan Goku right now,
Right.
So and I think, yeah, I feel like, right now that's what the ladies of AEW have. Like we have been complaining for a long time. I mean, ever since the company started, like these ladies are not given enough time. They're not
Right.
given enough time. And then when you give them time, it's because Saray is around. Like,
Yeah.
really, they've got the talent. They've got what it
Yeah.
takes. Give them the time that they need. And I think we've been heard. And I agree with you. Like this year, I think we're gonna see them get the chance to really shine.
So let's jump to the men and let's jump to trip. We'll end this with Triple H and leave wrestling to jump to some other things, but let's jump to the men for a little bit. Um, Cody Rhodes has this amazing match at Hell in a Cell versus Seth Rollins, where basically his pec is torn off the bone. He's bleeding through half of his body. Like the bruise is gross and visible, and pulls off legitimately one of the most legendary performances I think we will ever watch in this business. Something bigger, more transcendent, arguably, than anything Dusty may have done in the ring. Um, he's obviously coming back at the Rumble because he's been given the green light to get back in the ring, but they're waiting till the Rumble.
Yeah.
Do you think he's the guy to dethrone Roman? And if not, what do you do with a guy like Cody Rhodes at this point if you're Hunter?
Ooh, well, that's a
Because
good
with Vince,
question.
with Vince, it really did seem like okay, Cody comes back at the Royal Rumble, he wins the Royal Rumble, and at the very least, he's wrestling
Yeah,
Roman at Mania.
yeah. Um, well, if it is Cody, it's not Cody this year.
You don't think it's Cody this year?
If it is him to dethrone Roman.
Oh, so I guess this gets into long term
Well,
story.
okay, maybe SummerSlam. Maybe SummerSlam. I don't
Who do
know.
you, who do you, Aaron, have to have? Who do you have dethrone Roman? In your heart of hearts and your storyteller of storyteller mind, um, who do you ultimately? Because some people floated Sami Zayn. For me, I would want Jey Uso to at least take. The goal, it seems to me, is that they're going to split the belts. Um, I would like to see Jay take one of the belts, primarily the SmackDown one that Roman started with. But I guess the question becomes like, who do you job him to first?
All I know is who I don't want him to drop it to. I can't. I There's no one set up for that right now. There's no one set up for it, and Seth can be set up for it.
He was the closest. He was the
Yeah.
closest previously.
And the thing is, like, but he was a heel Seth. And I mean,
Right.
he was a heel that everyone wanted to cheer. And so they're slowly bringing him back to face Seth right now. You know, um, that's going to need time in the oven. And then
And
that's
it's
going to
arguable
need,
that they're not going to cheer against Seth. I mean, it's arguable that they're not going to boo Seth because Seth has really gotten over, especially with this Austin Theory storyline.
yeah. So, I mean, he's definitely getting over right now. And
Right.
the narrators have to catch up to the audience right
Yes.
now. And on top of that, they're going to need to find some legitimate reason beyond the title for these two former brothers and still current brothers to go up against each other. Roman, and Seth, they had that bond, that brotherly love before Roman even mentioned that he was related to the Usos,
Yes.
kayfabe wise, right? So you've got a lot of stuff to work with there, and it would be amazing to see that work out, and but I think the big prerequisite for Roman losing this is that the Roman Empire has to collapse.
Yes.
The WWE, no one person, no one group in the WWE is going to beat the Bloodline. The Bloodline is going to beat the Bloodline. I think we
Correct.
all know that. If you've been
Yes.
watching week on week, you kind of know, like, no one can actually defeat them.
Do
They
you
can
think
only
we're at
defeat
the
themselves.
do you think we're at the 50% point where we're going to start seeing like the downfall? Or do you think we're
Unfortunately, yeah.
yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah. Because I think that they have more time to have them on top and to have them content. We
Right.
I need like a little happily ever after kind of feeling that needs to persist for at least 2 weeks before we see cracks. But we've been seeing cracks every week, and we're worried every week. Give us a taste of the bliss that they could have on top for like 2 weeks, just 2 weeks, and then take it away from us. You
Right.
know, the same way, like when the Shield was on top, effectively, they were on top without any dissension for 2 weeks. That was it. That
Right.
was it.
Correct.
And it
Yes.
was blissful. And then there was this one night only in WWE. This had to have been more than a decade ago now, where we had all the champions that we wanted.
Yes.
It
Yes,
was
I remember.
CM Punk, Daniel
Dan Bri-
Bryan, and
Daniel
Zack
Bryan.
Ryder all had
Yes.
gold, and it was a night of bliss. And then you take that away from us. That's what we need for the Bloodline. We need the Bloodline to be on top and happy to the point that we almost want to cheer for them. No, we do want to cheer. I want to cheer for them,
So
but
who
like, we feel like it's almost okay to cheer for them. That's what I need. And I don't think they're going to do it because they've been working with this dissension in the ranks thing for such a long time.
who do you ultimately break away? I don't think it's Sami Zayn who breaks away from Roman. They were floating on the internet a little bit on the dirt sheets that somehow if the Rock and Roman happens this year for WrestleMania, which seems like a big if at this point. I don't think it happens at this point. I think Dwayne's pretty mad about Shazam. Not Shazam, sorry, Black Adam. Um,
Well, that's
Whatever.
because he didn't have Shazam in it, dumbass.
Yeah, well, we'll get there.
I'm sorry, man. Should have had Shazam. Okay.
Yeah.
Zachary Levi is the national treasure. It's just we don't know about it yet. Like, just why did you do that? Have
Uh,
some fun. He's got lots of
apparently
funny to do.
he's very deep in his feelings right now with a bottle of tequila. Apparently that's where he is. Um if he does face Roman, apparently the idea around the dirt sheets is that Solo Sokoa would be the one to turn on Roman, and that would start the downfall. And then you'd start seeing like dissension in the Usos, and then it would be Roman left with Sami Zayn. And I guess like my thought is ultimately like Roman is going to go to Hollywood at some point in the near future, like in the next 2 to 3 years.
Did
He's
you hear
definitely
Becky's thinking about going to Hollywood too?
yeah, but I don't think that goes as well as she thinks it does.
I don't think so either. I don't think so either. Not yet. Not yet. Give it a little bit more time. Two more
I
years. 2 more years. We
I
need you here
think
for 2 more years.
yeah. I think that she has 2 more years in the WWE before she needs to like really think about what where she goes next, because
Mhm.
like at this point her and Charlotte are of a generation that will quickly become God, it's so weird to think about women's wrestling like this, because when we were growing up, like if you thought about like Sable and Ivory and Jacqueline and all of these people, like, they stayed around for a number of years, but then they just kind of disappeared. And then all of a
Mhm.
sudden we have like the Diva search, and you have this whole swath of women with AJ Lee and all, you know, we now have like Charlotte's been here for a while. We've had
Yeah.
uh Becky Lynch for a while now. Bailey's been here for a bit. Sasha Mercedes Moné has been here long enough that she's now in New Japan.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
if you look at how everyone's career's going, it feels like something drastic would have to happen for all of them to have that next chapter without the jump of Hollywood. Like something drastic would have to happen in their wrestling career. Like they would have to remake their character or hit a hot streak or something like that.
Well,
But
you
it
know,
just feels
and
like, especially for Becky, like I agree with you. Like Hollywood might be in her future down the road, but like it's in she needs to finish out her run and like
yeah, I mean,
really
she
finish it
and
out in
she
a way
tried that
that
heel thing with Big Time Bex, and we wanted her to go back to being the man because we didn't have the man for long enough.
right, right,
You know, we didn't we weren't worn out on the man yet.
right.
And I think it's just a matter of like timing and finding a. And I also think that if they want if we want them here forever, or if they want to do this for the foreseeable future, they have the blueprint as to how to do that. And that is working from a place of authenticity and understanding when
Mm-hmm.
that place shifts. It's slow. It happens over a certain amount of time, but you've got people like Orton, you've got
Mm-hmm.
the Miz, you've got Jericho, all of whom have been able to transform themselves and constantly renew
Very true.
their their uh their on-screen personas, you know, and in a way that is consistent with who they are as on the inside, right? Like Jericho did not just like totally change his persona, change how he spoke, change all this stuff right about him. Like he's still Jericho, but
Yeah.
now he's drinking a little bit of bubbly instead of screaming Y2J, right?
Well, the last year in itself for Y2J's
Mhm.
storyline has basically been like taking the memes of Jericho and distilling it down into who he is now.
Yeah, yeah, and so when I think about of those three men, right? They don't change the core of their character, and I think one of the biggest problems that WWE had with Vince is that, oh, you're going to change everything about who you are, everything, because this is the gimmick we want. This is what's going to sell toys and t-shirts. And it's not, it didn't work. It didn't work,
Right.
you know? And there's only been one like real like mistake since Triple H has taken over. And that was that one dude. What was it? He was a sommelier for for Carmella, and then he came back in NXT or something, and it was a totally different
Smalley.
personality.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, yeah,
So
yeah.
so they debuted him. I want to say it was like it couldn't have been like more than a month ago, and
He had
he's
like a
like a
24/7
totally
belt a lot.
yeah, and now he's like a totally different dude, and like
Right.
no, you can't do it like that, right?
Right.
And for the most part, under the regime of Paul and Stephanie, things have been, very consistent. But this is the one thing where only time will tell. We need like more time to see if they're going to allow their superstars to shift organically and to change things a bit more organically, and to get a sense of timing from the audience as to when they are willing to let a part of that person's persona go. You know,
Right.
it wasn't time to let the man go.
Right.
So now the man is back, you know.
How do you judge Hunter's tenure so far in terms of letting the superstars be themselves? And what do you think of his booking now that he has to book all of the shows essentially?
I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, we're getting at least a 10.5, 11 right now. I'm not even going to lie. Like,
You
there
think
have
it's
been
that good? You
there,
think it's
yeah,
that good?
yeah. And this is so the reason I say this is because we know for a fact Sammy was not supposed to be with the bloodline this long,
Right.
but he saw something there.
Right.
Everyone saw something there that could be more long term. And they shifted. They shifted and they went with it. That's not something that we have experienced in the last 5 to 10, maybe even 15 years under Vince, where,
Correct.
with the exception of Daniel Bryan, when he had won his championship, hey, we watched that. We were at that WrestleMania. It was me, you,
Yeah.
in Hartness.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Buffalo Wild
yeah,
Wings.
at Buffalo Wild Wings. Yeah, but that was
Taker lost to Lesnar that
yeah,
night,
on
and we
that
were
same
all,
night,
yeah.
we were depressed as hell, man. We're like, what the fuck is going on, dude? What? But you know, when I think about that particular situation, it was a begrudging kind of
Yes.
thing. They went with it and they were like, okay, fucking fine. We'll
And they
give
didn't
you
go
your.
with anyone like that ever again
They never
afterwards.
went, no. And they had already squashed Ryder before that, right? Because he
Yes.
just wasn't in the plans, you know. And I don't want to say it like in a disparaging way when it comes to like their mindset back then, right?
Well, they
They
still
have a
don't
plan.
like the internet. They still
Yeah,
don't like the internet for some
yeah,
reason,
yeah.
which I don't know how much time you spend on YouTube watching wrestling like I do, but one thing that AEW has done just so well since their inception is that they go on YouTube and they cut their shows
Yeah.
into 5 to 7 minute segments that you can like watch and review, and a lot of people watch them.
Mm-hmm.
WWE was doing that for a little bit, and they actually cut it down to where like they cut the show down to like a 3 minute cut that was actually pretty good, that could give you a small taste of the show. But
Yeah.
recently WWE under Hunter has gone back to like, okay, we're gonna give you 6 to 7 minute cuts of Raw. Here's 6 to 7 minute
And we're
cuts of
gonna take our
SmackDown.
time posting it.
Yes, and we're gonna take our long ass time posting it though.
I think that's more of an administrative thing. I don't think
Yes,
they're doing that on purpose. I
no,
think I think someone's just kind of like letting that department go,
yes,
and just
but
I don't really know if I feel like if someone just kind of like says, hey dude, just be a little bit more proactive on these things. I bet
Yes.
It would be a little bit more consistent, a little bit faster, quicker on the trigger, and you know, USA and Fox are not TNT. Is it
Correct.
TNT or TBS?
Yes.
TNT.
Technically it's TBS, but yeah.
TBS. But yeah, like, so they have their demands, they have their requirements. We're not sure. We can't know for sure if they might have said like, hey, give let this let the show be there for a little while before you guys post something online and
Right.
people step off of Peacock and just look at the YouTube clip, you know.
Right.
So I don't know if that is, because they're much bigger than TBS,
Right.
and they got a lot more money to throw around. They can throw their weight around on WWE, and we know for a fact that that has been something that they've had to deal with in the
Right.
past.
So, um, before we go onto a different subject, it seems like there's a good, I'm a big Stone Cold Steve Austin mark. It seems like there's a pretty good possibility he might be wrestling this year at Mania 2. Um, who do you think the opponent ends up being? And do you want to see this? I'm a mark,
No,
so I want to see this. So yes for me. But like,
I don't want
if
to
you,
see it.
I, I know you don't want to see it. I knew you wouldn't want to see it. But
Yeah,
if you have to see it, who do you want to see it in the ring with?
I got nothing. I
It,
got nothing. I literally got nothing. I mean, okay, what? Not Seth, not Owens, not McIntyre.
no. Um,
I mean, whoever he steps in the ring with, like, I have to believe he's gonna win, because I don't think that they're gonna put Stone. I don't think they're gonna put him in a match where he actually loses.
what about a young guy like
Theory,
Grace? No, I think
because I mean,
Theory.
it's time. Theory's hit rock bottom. It's time for him to go up, and jobbing to Austin is not a path upwards. You know,
What about Grayson Waller?
okay,
Yeah, yeah.
all right, we'll go with
I
it.
I would have said AJ, but AJ just broke his ankle and is probably not going to be at Mania or
Yeah, we're not gonna
anywhere.
see him for a little while. So,
Yeah.
but like, yeah, I'm not down with Stone Cold being there. You know what I've always wanted for Stone Cold.
Okay, go on.
So how they had Renee positioned for a while in the WWE,
Yes.
where she was a good interviewer, asked good questions and all
Yes.
that good stuff, right? So imagine Stone Cold going around interviewing people, and when they start to talk some shit to him, he just stuns them.
I mean, that would have been hilarious. Yeah, that would have been great. I
just
mean,
but like good questions, right? And then when they start to go in on their stuff, and they're like, shut up, Austin. Oh, you didn't
oh,
tell me this.
oh,
Boom.
you you
Right?
mentioned like Renee, and for some reason popped in my head. He should wrestle Miz. Like if there's someone out there that could be safe with him, that would give him a good match, that would be great on the mic with him, that would give a really good show. Like Mike's kind of the dude besides Kevin, and they already did
Yeah,
Kevin.
yeah. You know what? Yeah, but just like, oh, you know what I would be okay with seeing with Austin? Gargano.
Gargano would be interesting. That would be the Shawn
I
Michaels
would
match we never got.
I would not mind seeing like 5 minutes of Austin and Gargano.
That'd be very interesting. It really would.
Yeah.
And I think Johnny would be able to work around him.
Yeah. That and that's one of the things that, like, that's what I was kind of thinking,
Yeah.
is like, Gargano would be able to work safe and still look really, really good. Same way that
Yes.
Miz works safe and looks pretty good, really good, actually. Really, really
For
good.
for some reason I had in my head like let's put Austin and Sheamus together, but then I was like Sheamus is just gonna beat the shit out of this old man.
Yeah, Sheamus
Like
is gonna throw him
I love Steve
around,
too
just
much
like,
for that.
man,
Look here,
what
fella.
just happened to
I
my disc? Sheamus looked at
I
me.
can't hit you. I can't hit you anymore. I'm gonna kill you, Steve.
Yeah,
The
but
Banshees of Inisherin will call after me.
but I also hesitate with Miz because I
Right.
do think that Miz deserves another moment at the top.
Yes.
I think it was given to him a little bit too early, and people really, really soured on him for a long time. The locker room was already sour on him. There, and a bunch of them are still sour on him, but he's the best heel in the business. And that
Yeah.
is including MJF, because MJF just doesn't quite have the experience that the Miz does. He's the best heel in the business. And I do think that same thing with Miz. I mean, same thing with MJF, same thing with Miz that I said with MJF. Miz needs to win clean more
Yes.
because he does deserve a time at the top. And I think he can earn it and really have people behind him, either as a face or a heel. Um, he's just, he's so good on the mic. You know, he's been in a little bit of a rambling streak over the second half of last year, but he can get out of that. He's creative, you know.
Right.
And yeah, like dude, him, and like I can't get over the fact that, we only had Ziggler at the top for like 2 minutes,
Yeah.
and he's still there. And I guess this is something that, some of us old heads, we can't get over
I'm
how some
surprised
of
that I'm surprised that he's just not in the NXT main event still. Like it seemed like Dolph Ziggler in the NXT main event scene was the perfect spot for him. Like that's where he should be. He's just that veteran who would be perfect with those kids.
Yeah. And you know
Yeah.
what? I feel like that NXT is doing so much good for these veterans who were not there when it was in the format that it is right now.
Saving Apollo Crews.
Yeah, Apollo Crews needed that, man, because I was at a point where I was just like, just fucking leave the company, dude.
Yeah.
Just
Especially
leave.
after that great Nigerian prince gimmick.
Yeah. And that worked for a minute, but then
Yeah.
and I thought it was going to age like fine wine. It ended up aging like milk. It was like cottage cheese after a certain point.
They just start
And
jobbing him immediately and
they started, yeah, he
yeah,
started losing over and over and over. So like to me, I just, he's in the right place. And I hope that they give him enough time to kind of like do what he's got to do. They have the New Day over there probably because it is hard for us to believe that the New Day would face the Usos again and lose.
yeah, at this point. Well, at the same
Like,
well, that gets into the hard conversation about Rome, about the bloodline in general. Like, you know, at this point, it does look like Roman goes off to Hollywood in a few years. He just seems destined for that. Um,
mhm.
I don't know how long the Usos keep going being this unstoppable tag team before, someone has to come along and beat them. And, the New Day's lost enough now that I don't think we want to see the New Day lose again. And even seeing
I
them,
mean, give it a year, let the Roman Empire fall apart, and the New Day can come back up and snatch that off of them real quick. You know,
absolutely, especially if Biggie's back in time.
yeah,
Um, but getting these guys off this high is going to be such a difficult task, and rebuilding them afterwards is just going to be so tough. But speaking of rebuilding, let's leave pro wrestling. You're a coder.
hmm
You not only code my website, you've coded a bunch of things, applications. I wanted to bring you on because
By
you're
the
kind of the
way,
first.
hold on. By the way,
Yeah,
we're overdue for a makeover. Now that you got 10 episodes,
yeah, I know.
we're putting this shit on the website, just so you know.
No, I know. We'll
We're
figure
putting
that
this shit
out.
on the
But
website. Yeah.
I know. I have to ask you about this because I'm sure you've been following it, and I've definitely been following it. I've been using Chat GBT a lot recently for some creative projects. I've been using it for idea generation. I've been using it for proofreading and some editorial tasks. And I think that we are clearly on the cusp of a commercially available AI package of tools that I don't think people know what to do with, but it's very clear that we're on the cusp of a very transformative period. And you're working at some pretty big tech places. You've done a lot of independent work in the tech sector. You're a great coder and you keep up with um, your craft. Where do you see all of this going, especially with AI being now able to like kind of generate code on its own?
Yeah, I see it taking my fucking job. So I'm gonna start making video games.
Yeah.
Like,
No.
no joke. I'm learning the Unreal Engine right now because I do feel like something like that can really, disrupt the market in
Right.
a way that will cost people their jobs, you know.
Right.
Um so yeah, it's really it's the only thing that AI can't do better than a human is things that require critical and creative thought. And uh, even there, it's not too far behind, you know.
So that this has gotten to a really big point of debate because like I'm not an AI skeptic. I'm kind of pro AI
Hmm.
in many cases because I'm like, it's here. We're not stopping this thing. We might as well try to make the best we can of it.
Hmm.
But there has been the question of like, okay, how long before it reaches the same level of human creativity and critical thought or skill level? And I guess which that gets into a large question of like, what is abstract thinking? Um, but someone has made the question of like, oh, it's only we're only 100 steps away, or like someone's like, we may only be 1,000 steps away, or it's like it's still maybe 10,000 steps away. But how quick do you think that this happens? Like,
Well, there are the thing about AI is that, when you I think when a lot of people look at it from the outside, they're like, it can do anything. It can do a lot of, it can do this, it can do that. But
right?
when you look at the situation, like AI is quite sensitive.
Yes,
Um, they need the right conditions to operate very, very well.
right,
When we look at, I think when people see like how, let's say, a delivery center in Amazon operates, it is literally a place where people put packages into bags in a certain order to go out and be delivered.
right.
And you would think that an AI machine can make that happen very quickly. But the conditions in which those packages get to the delivery center
Right.
make it pretty impossible for an AI machine. Let's imagine just a machine that can kind of roll around and grab packages, pick them up, move them, put them in the right place. These little things. When you do that, like if you actually go and do it and think basic steps and then the steps that create those basic steps to make that process work, AI is very sensitive when it comes to those things, and the environment
Absolutely.
around them, So there's a lot of work to be done before AI can, really do things like that, and it's, you know, we've got a lot of like when you talk to people in military, right? And you talk to them about AI. I've got a friend who's stationed in Georgia,
Right.
and we were talking about like the military applications of AI, and he was just like, "Man, it's not going to work for a long ass time," you know.
Yes.
You can do a drone that's
I
remote,
if I
right?
may ask,
But it's still controlled by a human.
what's a long ass time for them versus a long ass time for you?
I know what a long ass time for me is. And
Okay, what?
that's I'm probably on my deathbed before AI can really, and I'm older than I look. So it's not as long as you guys might think.
Oh, shut
But
the fuck up. You're younger than you're. Oh my god! Don't you even start. You're so fucking handsome. Don't you even dare. Don't you even dare. Look at that.
but
How to quote Greta before she caught Andrew Tate. How dare you?
so we're talking like 50 years before this really, now on small scales in controlled environments, it's going to take jobs. It's already taking jobs,
Yes,
right? But
I
when
think
we
a lot
look
of
at like
office work is just going to kind of
a lot of
disappear.
office work, absolutely, absolutely. But then like the office work that requires that is just human focused, like meetings and
Yes,
talking to people and personalities. Like I think we're going to be in this age where personality is going to get you beyond what AI can take from you.
yes.
And your own creativity is going to take you beyond what AI can take from you. You know, no one can write like Jay, right? No one can
Yeah.
write like me. An AI can try to do it, but they can't. And that the realms of creativity will be the last safe spots left when it
Well,
comes to, you know but that's like far future right there. That's beyond our lifetime, in my opinion, you know.
so I've done more than 100 hours with Chat GPT at this
Mhm.
point. I'm very well versed in it, and I've broken it several times now. Speaking to like what you talk about the sensitivity, and there's
Very sensitive.
well,
Yeah.
like I think people there's three things right now that I see AI struggling with, especially with like language modelers like ChatGPT. The first big one is capacity. Like I think people think that somehow you can hook up one of these AIs to just the internet or anything, and it just has the capacity to take in all of this data all at once and just go blink. I'm a genius AI. I'm Skynet now. Like that's not how that works.
Mm.
Um, ChatGPT can probably only take about 10,000 characters really before it like fucking wigs out.
Mm.
Um, it can't do comparison more than two types of documents at one time. Um, God, it can't do active writing, like it can't do active voice. So show versus tell is impossible for it.
Yep.
But the other interesting thing that I don't think people really get is that it only works and only grows off the information you give it. If you give it shit, it's going to turn into a
Gonna
shitty
give you shit.
AI.
It's gonna give
Exactly.
you shit. So imagine, you've got a lot of very smart people feeding AI a lot of stuff that they think is the right thing.
Yeah. And there's no guarantee of that.
There's no guarantee of that. And this is the thing. Like we can right now, what we might be feeding that virtual brain is what we think is going to be appropriate for that virtual brain. And then in 100 years, someone says, why the fuck did you give that to them? You
Yes.
know, it's like parenting techniques, right? Shit
I've
that
been
worked like 50 years ago. Everyone's like, yeah, go ahead. That's what you do. Feed them, if they're sick, tea with a little bit of whiskey. You know what I'm saying? Just get them to
yeah.
sleep. Right.
Yeah.
And now you got parents like, why would you ever do that?
Yeah, exactly.
It's going
I
to be the
think
same thing with how we work with AI right now, you know?
absolutely.
So, we are definitely, you know, we're in a place where we don't know what we don't know with
Mhm.
AI. And
Absolutely.
once again, like the sensitivity of AI and how easy you can break it or overload it or and things like that when it comes to um day-to-day applications.
Yes.
We are not there yet. And then given that Moore's law is getting like really, really difficult to actually,
Jesus, isn't it?
achieve, you
Yeah.
know, it's gonna be. That's why the newest GPUs were so expensive. Like people keep talking about crypto making them expensive and things like that, and then in reselling and stuff like that. But still, it took Nvidia and AMD a lot of work to
Yes.
double the performance and the capacity of their newest GPUs. So
Yes.
imagine taking that and putting that
And a long time.
in a
We have to
very long
mention
time.
a
Yeah,
very long time.
it took a very long time. And just, you've got to imagine like getting that much data and for an AI to work, they've got to take in shed loads of data, a lot of data.
Honestly, I don't think it works until you actually hook it up to, until we get quantum processing and quantum computing down to the scale level that, it's commercially available. So I don't even think that's 50 years and we're on our deathbeds. I'm thinking that's a century from now.
Yeah,
Like, I just don't think AI is something that like overtakes us in the next
yeah.
century. But
Mm-hmm.
what do you think it does in terms of software and writing code though? Because like people are really making hay of this kind of like it's going to replace software engineering.
Yeah, there's this program called GitHub Copilot. I want to
Yes.
call it Copilot. Yeah, there is there's a place for it in the
Mm-hmm.
workplace,
Mm-hmm.
but then what you need is, you know, it's kind of a plug and play, and then you still need to do your custom work, you know.
Right.
So, for example, if we compare this to something like a Squarespace
Right.
or like any of these plug and play places for your for like making a website or something, it looks like a professional website, but it looks very generic.
Mm-hmm.
How do you make it yours? And then you still need the knowledge to make it look like your website, you know?
Right.
So, you know,
And that's a
people are still
process.
going to be needed, yeah, people are still going to be needed when it comes to the critical thinking um behind the scenes when it comes to that code and stuff, you know, but they need to be even smarter than they are now. Like people need to have more knowledge than they do now to be able to say, okay, this AI is not giving us the best, that big O notation that's not going to work right now. Let's swap it up a little bit. This isn't, but that means that they're going to be they're going to need to be extremely smart, way smarter than I am, you know, which
So
is why I'm making video games right now.
well, like first of all, you're very smart, but like besides moving the video games, what do you see in terms of being able to? What do you think people can do in the meantime to really adapt to this? Because I think in certain cases, like certain places like AI art, for example, it's just going to have to burn itself out. Like I think the AI art actually reaches redundancy at some point here soon.
It already has.
Yes.
It's just and a lot of people who are into it right now, they can tell you that it already has, you
Yeah.
know. Um
Yeah, it's quickly over.
yeah. So that was a fun little trend. We had fun with that, you
Wasn't
know.
that panic great? Oh my god, that panic was so wonderful. Oh, I enjoyed it. Watching
But
all my friends lose their minds.
yeah, yeah. Well, when it comes to
Fuck
like
it, let's shoot.
mo like most when it comes to like AI taking somebody's job, like that's most companies, like if you're, let's say you're working, at Google or something, they still need you to make the
Yes.
AI that takes other people's jobs, you
Well, I
know.
think I think if you're in a logistics job like in Charlotte right now and you're at one of those technical call centers and you're doing logistics, I think your days are really numbered because AI
Yes.
can just figure that out for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where you might have a problem. But when it comes to most small to medium sized companies, you're fine.
Yeah.
You're
If
fine.
anything, it'll be a benefit to them.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that they're kind of a lot of them, a lot of the a lot of small, medium sized, and older companies are just really set in their ways, and they're not tech companies,
Yes.
but they're using technology to keep up with the times, right? You know, when around where I am, I'm not in like New York or Los Angeles or San Francisco. I'm not in a big tech hub,
Thank God.
right?
Thank God.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And when I look at the job applications online, I know that there are better databases than SQL out there. There are way better databases than SQL out there, but they're all
Right.
still using SQL, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
So how are they going to be able to, and that's just kind of like one little kind of thing, like just to demonstrate how like just the inertia of being around for such a long time is going to keep people from adapting so quickly that your job is gone tomorrow, you know.
Right. Well, I have to ask you. So we have AI coming, and it's not going to be as quick as I think people think it's going to be. But at the same time, there's all this recent reporting that like millennials and Gen Z are kind of less they're less technically able than we thought. Like they just don't have the tech skills that we originally thought we had, apparently. Um, which I think it's kind of bogus reporting, to be honest.
No,
Um,
no, no, no. It's real. It's true. It's true. I'll give you a story about that. Listen.
okay, yeah, hit us.
So I recently broke up with my girlfriend of like
Oh,
a year. Now, a part of why we broke up is because I thought she was stalking me. I
I
thought she was stalking me. Now,
okay.
me and my fucking ego, right? Because, um, but I had been using Instagram because she likes to use Instagram. So I used it with her, right?
Yeah.
And come to find out from a friend, a mutual friend of ours, because I was like, I was a little concerned that she showed up at the barbershop when I got my hair cut. You know, she was a little suspicious of where I was going to work because, I had to, go to Amazon at like 2 a.m. And then suddenly she was like, oh no, I trust you. Right. And then this mutual friend of ours was like, how do you do software development and not know that you're posting your own fucking location every time you put up a post on Instagram? She knows
Yeah.
where you are because you're broadcasting it, you fucking idiot. I'm a millennial.
Oh God, Aaron. Okay. I didn't think that you'd be the example, but okay. I thought there was going to be someone walking into this. Very good. Very good.
So
Very
there we
good.
go. There we
Very
go.
good. This is why I have you here. Thank you.
So yeah, we are not as technologically gifted as these as everyone thought that we were,
yeah.
and it's just a matter of, and I think it's because most of what we use is so user friendly.
Yes. It's designed for like not even thinking about how you use it.
Yeah, you don't even have to like worry about it or think about it. It's got all its error handling. They've mapped out everything that you're going to do. You've got a flow chart. They know how you're going to use it, you
Yeah.
know and if you don't use it the way that they want you to use it, they influence you to use it the way that they want you to use it. And I'm not saying that in a conspiratorial sense. I do the same thing when I make websites and build
Right.
like little apps for myself, you know so it's not yeah, it's all just like kind of like right there. It's like driving a car. Like most of us know how to drive. A lot of us know how to drive. So it's the same thing, you know?
Right. So if you had to tell someone, you mentioned authors and, AI changing the creative space. How do you think people in the creative space in the meantime adapt to this? And, you know, you're working into video games. I'm, of course, always pushing with more novels and, of course, Pondering the Orb. Um, but what do you think people do in the meantime to like make this transition and I guess best utilize the change that's happening before us?
Um, learn how to market yourself.
Yeah.
Um, and know that you know when it comes to creative things like in the entertainment world,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be safe for a good long time.
Yeah.
But that requires a lot of work, a lot of investment that you are not going to get paid back for.
Right.
A lot of investment in time that you're not going to get paid back for. But when it comes to like the arts and stuff like that AI art, you don't have to worry about that because people are going to know, if especially if you're marketing yourself properly, right? You're going to be in a very good spot. So even more important these days is like it's not about what you know, it's who you know,
Mm-hmm.
and it's also about what you know about who you know. That was weird. Edit that out.
No, no, but that makes
Damn
no,
it.
that actually what you know about who you know actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Um,
So it's going to be about the individual character and the branding that you can bring to yourself, and we see that here on YouTube and Twitch and TikTok, right? Especially, when you have like streamers who play one game,
yes.
just one, and then that game falters, they're done, right? And they're
Yes.
panicking, right? But when you've got streamers that are multi-game streamers, and it's based on the force of their personality, they're doing just fine. You know,
Right.
it's gonna be more about you than ever before.
Right. So you mentioned TikTok. It seems like the government's coming down on this pretty hard. And unless ByteDance, which is a Chinese owned company, which means they're owned by the CCP, it seems like unless they sell to a US firm, it seems like we're going to have an eventual banning outright of TikTok. What do you think is happening what do you think right now about the social media space? You mentioned Instagram. I recently migrated to Mastodon and have had some interesting experiences, but what do you think about what's going on right now in terms of just how social media is changing? And then you mentioned like Twitch and YouTube, but we started with TikTok. What do you think happens if a ban on TikTok occurs? And then what do you see of just like the future of YouTube and the future of Twitch? Because you're on those two a lot, and if you want to touch on the other social medias, by all means.
Oh, I'm going to touch on one of them right now. Elon fucked my shit up. I was getting 100 hits a day on my website for my business. And then Elon stepped in and I'm getting like five. Fuck
Really?
him. I'm so mad at him right now. But, anyways, when it comes to the TikTok thing, TikTok did its job. It did its job because, YouTube's trying to do the shorts and they're working.
Yes.
They're working out
Yes.
pretty well, you know?
Yeah.
Like, especially like if it, like recipe shorts are the best.
Oh my
Man,
god.
dude, I just go from one to the next. I'm like, yo, that's a badass recipe. Oh, that's a great recipe. It's great. It's wonderful. So TikTok did its job. If
Yeah.
if that company gets shut down, okay. The kids are going to complain for a little while and then they're going to move on to YouTube Shorts. That's why YouTube did it, because they knew the government might shut it down, and then they get all of that audience. They get
Right.
all of them. It's brilliant, right? Twitch is just stupid.
Yeah.
Twitch is just like really stupid, and
It feels
when
outdated. It feels greatly outdated at
it's
this point.
outdated, and and it's and it's turned into like just a big ass reality show. Like I'm not I don't even watch Twitch that much anymore, and quite frankly, I don't like actually watch YouTube. I listen to
Yeah.
YouTube while I'm coding, you know.
Yes.
So
Including the wonderful show Pondering the Orb.
absolutely. So you do that too. it,
Yes.
it goes on long enough for me to like, I don't have to worry about what
Yes.
video's next.
Trust
Like that's
me,
the best part about it.
the episodes go on fucking long enough.
So I when it comes to Twitch, I think like the people that are making it to the top or staying at the top, you know, a lot of them were gamers
Yeah.
and now they're talk show hosts
Yes.
because they're thinking the same thing that I was suggesting earlier, which is you cannot base your whole thing on something that someone else is doing. You base it
Yes.
on a game, and if that game goes badly, right, there goes your livelihood, right?
Yes.
A whole bunch of like Destiny streamers that when Bungie was having real problems with that game, they were panicking because their livelihood required Destiny to be successful. Now it
Right.
is now, and it's doing great, and it's doing some really good stuff.
Right.
But back when and every year Destiny streamers are like, is the game dead, is the game dying, when it's usually always like 2 to 3 months before the next expansion comes out.
Right.
Maybe your audience is just taking a break, but they
Maybe.
panic about it every fucking year like they didn't remember what happened last year. So Twitch is kind of a microcosm of the things that I had suggested earlier, but it's not fun to watch.
Yes. Well, I noticed that there's a lot of cross section now between Twitch and YouTube, but not in the good ways. Like besides Mr. Beast, who was big on Twitch for a little bit, then he jumped to YouTube. Um, the only big like for some reason Logan Paul, who's not a gamer, was able to take like his minuscule kind of following on Twitch and build it into something on YouTube. But like the gamers on Twitch have a really hard time kind of pushing forward. And I think it's not only like I think part of it is that YouTube is becoming such a hard place to monetize in terms of copyright. Like even the show. So a lot of people may know this, a lot of people may not know this. This show's completely demonetized. And the reason it's completely demonetized is because if I want to play music from melodic death metal bands, I usually have to go to labels, and unless I want to pay a rights fee, I get to play their song, but like I don't get to monetize the episode. They can monetize the
Yep.
episode. Same
Yep.
thing with like synthwave artists, though a lot of the synthwave artists who show up on this show are very kind about it and will whitelist me so I don't have to worry about that issue. Um, I think the hard thing about YouTube that like one if Twitch falls down, or I'm sorry, if TikTok falls down, like the atmosphere at YouTube right now in terms of monetization is going to be very different than what people are expecting. It's much harder unless you are able to transfer that audience immediately from TikTok to your YouTube. Like a lot of those people from TikTok get on YouTube and they kind of just falter because they don't realize like you have to promote on YouTube the way you would promote on any other social media channel.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
you have to
So
make
it's it's
posts.
it's like a couple of steps back, and
Yes.
And there's a
Exactly.
different game that needs to be played on YouTube, which is, advertising, you know, when I mean, sponsorships, you know,
Right.
sponsorships and Patreon, you know.
Right.
So if you've got, you know, you gotta either play one of those or both of them at the same time, which, a lot of people do, you know. They go for the for sponsorships and that, right? And it when it comes to YouTubers in their sponsorships, that actually helps YouTube out quite a bit,
Yes.
because you've got people listening and they're trying to, like, you know, get into the video or whatever, and the YouTuber has their sponsorship. That's an ad in our mind. That's an ad.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
YouTube has their ads. So then you're like, well, I'm watching YouTube, or at least playing YouTube in the background, like hours on end every day. So why
Hmm.
not just buy the subscription? And there
Yes.
goes, they got me into subscribing to YouTube for that reason alone, right?
Yeah.
I'm cool with listening to a content creator's ad read, you know,
Right.
but I'm not cool with listening to an ad after that ad read and I haven't even gotten to the subject matter of the video yet, you know?
Right.
So YouTube got me on that. I'm fully aware that they got me on it. I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly fine with it, So I think, if TikTok gets shut down, any TikToker out there that might be listening to this, it's going to be about, sponsorships and Patreon, if you want to do Patreon, you know. And with Patreon, you've got some separate work that you've got to put into that,
Yes.
Like, you might have your own little Discord server. You might have some videos that you post on Patreon that you don't post on YouTube. Those will be exclusive videos. And then, little things like that. You're gonna have to, like, decide how you're gonna what kind of work you're gonna put in. If it's all shorts, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But can you leverage that?
That's the hard thing. Can you leverage that? And that's a very
And I'm
important
not saying that
question.
rhetorically. I'm saying, like,
Yeah.
build some. How do you leverage that?
Yeah. So, um, two more things, and then I'm going to let you go because this has been so much fun. But uh,
You sure
trying
we can
to,
split this up into 2 episodes and I can go along? I can go longer.
man, last time I
I'm
did that,
single now.
we'll talk about a co-hosting gimmick. Um,
Yeah.
so you're deeply into video games, and I think 2023 has. I mean, 2022 was an interesting year for video games. I think 2023 is going to be a big year for video games. Um, where would you like to begin? I mean, there's so many things to talk about. I just got an Xbox S, so
Oh,
and to go with my yeah, I see that. I see that. I see that. I see that. It's great. It's great. I love it. I
I
love
mean,
it.
I love Microsoft's games too. I love their Game Pass, right? But
Yeah.
since I have this PC, like, what
I
console do I need to buy? I gotta
I
buy a Sony. I
I
gotta get a
I
PlayStation.
I understand. Well, look, you are our PC overlord. I cannot fight you on this one. The PC is just far and away better. Though I have to ask, have you looked at or touched a Steam Deck?
Yeah, I can't help but laugh because, yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Okay.
Um,
Just what are your general reflections on it?
I think it's great. Um, for the games that you don't need to use mouse and keyboard on.
Ah, that makes
And
sense.
since I got this PC and I started playing on mouse and keyboard, there are lots of games that I've been playing on controller for upwards of 30 years. And now that I'm on mouse and keyboard for some of them, I can't go back.
Yep.
Like, there should never, ever, ever be cross-platform play for any competitive first-person shooter ever,
Yes.
because there is a biometric advantage
Yes.
for a mouse and keyboard user against a controller player. Can controller players win in that match? Yeah, but that controller player needs to be many, many times more skilled on the controller than the mouse and keyboard player is on the mouse and keyboard. And I've
Yes.
got this beautiful setup. I don't just have a mouse and keyboard because I decided like I'm not going to use my keyboard to play video games. I only want to use it to type code. That's it, right?
Right.
So I went out and got a Razer keypad.
Ooh, okay, now we're
And
talking.
that keypad has like a directional thumb pad on it.
Yeah.
So I have my mouse in my right hand and I can aim properly with that. And I can move like the I can move with my left thumb. I got the best of both worlds when it comes
Yeah.
to like first person shooters and MMOs, you know. So
So, what are you playing for first person shooters that has been, in your opinion, you played it on a console, but now you've played it on a PC and it's been transformative for you?
Apex, Apex
Apex?
Legends. Yeah.
Okay.
And man, let me tell you, man, I was dog shit at first. I was so bad.
Yeah.
I'm still pretty bad, but I'm way better here on the mouse and keyboard than I was on controller when playing Apex Legends, and also with Destiny. You know, which I don't even play. That I haven't played it. I haven't played Destiny since last January, but
Wow. Okay.
I was using I used the Witch Queen campaign to kind of get used to the mouse and keyboard.
Mm,
Um, to get back used to the mouse and keyboard. I mean, I've had this PC for I want to say almost 3 years now, but I didn't really invest in using the mouse and keyboard for a shooter until the Witch Queen campaign came out. I played that solo just so like I could fail and fail and fail and fail, you
right.
know.
Such an
And
important thing for a gamer to do. You need to
yeah,
give yourself so much time to fail.
give yourself some time to fail when you're adapting to a new like, especially when it comes to like going from keyboard controller to mouse and keyboard or the other way around. Give yourself time to
Yes.
fail,
Oh
you
yeah.
know. And when it comes to other genres like i used I used Final Fantasy 14 to get used to just the overall mouse and keyboard setup. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we're talking like one, two, three, four, yeah, 4 50-hour campaigns for like $20.
Yeah.
And so I had all the time in the world. And not only that, like a bunch of really nice people in that community, like, yeah, try this, try that, you know.
Yeah.
So it was yeah, mouse and keyboard, man, should never go up against a controller user. It's not fair.
So okay, let's be gentle to those console users though for a second.
Hey, I still love my consoles. I bought a Nintendo Switch just to play Monster Hunter Rise. So, you know,
Okay, so you and I are both Switch users.
yes,
I have to say, for all the handhelds that I've had in my life, and
one of the
this goes, yeah,
it's
yeah,
absolutely
easily.
one of the best.
Oh my god.
But if you got a Switch, bro, have you played Monster Hunter?
No, I have not played Monster Hunter. I I have to be very careful in terms of what I play around my son, my soon to be 3-year-old son. Um he I am currently playing Kings of Amalur Re-Reckoning. I'm on a second playthrough.
Mm-hmm.
It's an action RPG.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's like a B plus RPG. Um, it really is. It's a B plus. Todd McFarlane did all the art for it, so it's a smorgasbord of problems. But I had to start measuring like the violence in it, and he started like doing things like picking up a sword and like hitting things. So I have a feeling if if I start going into like the more heavy RPGs, he's going to get ideas.
So I've seen, you know, that game, comparing it to
Yeah.
Monster Hunter.
No, I
Monster Hunter is a lot like, but I think you might have an appreciation for it,
yeah.
because I do remember you talking about Lords of the Fallen, like way back
Yes.
when, you know,
Yes.
and games like that, those kind of Souls like games. Monster Hunter is not a Souls like game, but
Right.
it provides that kind of challenge. You know,
Right.
you've got a lot of, like, you've got 14 weapon types. Each weapon is almost its own game by itself in terms of like the depth of how you can learn, in learning, these monsters. Like, I don't think there is no other video game out there that that inspires players to make YouTube documentaries on these monsters as if it was National Geographic.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go and look that up
yeah,
now.
yeah. It's good shit. And if you need someone to take you through the campaign, if you buy it, I will help you through that campaign.
Well, I have a birthday coming up. The two things
Oh,
that
well,
I'm
then I'm buying it for you.
well, okay, okay. The two
There you
things
go.
I'm getting besides Monster Hunter now, I'm also getting Mountain Blade Bannerlord because I hear Bannerlord is pretty amazing. And I see a lot of people playing it on PC and it looks incredible. I'm gonna play it on the S once I have to move apartments here soon.
Yeah,
But oh
it's good.
dude,
It's pretty cool experience. Yeah.
man, games are getting to a point now where I think for a couple years ago, you and I talked about how like with this current generation of platforms, we're kind of at the top end of where the platforms can go before you really do have to jump to a PC. Like, I understand why you're at a PC. It really is kind of, if you're a diehard gamer like you, it really is kind of the place that you have to go if you really want to expand your experience as a gamer, especially if you're competitive. Um,
Which I'm not very competitive. I'm not a very
right.
competitive person. The most competitive I am is like in a card game called Legends of Runeterra,
Yes.
based on like the League of Legends world. I got to
Yes.
masters this season, like, for the first time ever. I was only like, I've always gotten like maybe 2 games away from masters there, like the highest
Right.
rank, and now I'm sitting at like the bottom of masters, and I'm cool. I'm done for this season. I'm good to go. But like, yeah,
Nice.
for me, it's like video games. The big, this is something that I believe for a very, very long time now, and that like a lot of people don't really like it when I say it, but video games are probably the most advanced form of storytelling that humanity has developed in its entire history.
Oh, by far. And I'm a
And
novelist, and I will tell you that I'm a novelist. Like, and I revere books. I hold books up
mhm,
as like these paragons of human culture. Like the book in itself is a representation of our achievement as human societies. Whatever you can say about that,
yeah,
but
and that
video games as an experiential thing in terms of
exactly.
storytelling, far and away.
And see, it doesn't take away what other forms of storytelling bring to the table,
A
right?
thousand percent.
It's just more advanced, right? just
Yes.
just technologically. You're like, when we look at a book, you're looking at one sense, you're
It,
engaging in that with one sense.
it's a
If
level
you're
of
listening to
immersion.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then when you're watching a movie or a television show, you're engaging two senses. You're playing a video game, you're engaging three.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're seeing right now is that, when you have two particular things that authors have to worry about, which is the attention span of the reader
Mm-hmm.
and the hook point, right?
Yes.
How much time do you have to hook the reader? If you are an untrusted, not known author and they pick up your book, you've got the first page. That first page is cut in half. right?
Right.
When we look at television, sometimes people will say, give it 2 episodes. That might be being kind, right? You've got
Yes.
5 minutes. You've got 5 minutes in the first episode, and that's really it. Same thing with a movie. You've got 10 minutes, unless it's a franchise that you trust or a director that you trust, an actor that you're a fan of, right? And the only reason you don't walk out is because you don't get a refund on that movie ticket,
Very true. Yes.
right? But on Netflix, you can just turn it off, and people turn it off
All the time. Yes.
all the time, all the
It's
time.
why Netflix is having its problems right now.
Mm-hmm. Now, one thing, and this is still kind of anecdotal when it comes to video games, but there a lot of these companies are trying to figure out, like, how much should we show people before we even release this game to hook them, right? And the reason I kind of rolled my eyes at you picking Xbox is because when it comes to storytelling in video games, Sony's got the umbrella. They've got the first party studios that are telling the best stories in video games, point blank, period. And then they're associated with some of the studios that tell the best stories in video games, like Capcom and Resident Evil and Square Enix in Final Fantasy. But let's just go with God of War as an example when we come to that hook point. God of War Ragnarok.
I
Fucking
I cannot
masterpiece, by the
fight
way.
you on these points. By the way, folks, I am nodding along at home, though anyone can see on the video. Like, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
I just have a counter to all this. But go on, go on.
So when it comes to this hook point, right? How long the storyteller has to hook the audience. Sony decided, okay, how much of this game are we going to show people before we release it for them to decide whether they want to play it or not? And that's what they decided would be their hook point. 40 minutes. You got 40 minutes to hook the audience. If I told a young Martin Scorsese that he had a whole 40 minutes to capture his audience, what do you think he would do? He might jizz in his pants. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
he might flip out. 40 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing,
That is
right?
amazing.
How much time you've got? Like, when we look at radio and War of the Worlds, right? First line had to hook you.
Yeah.
The very first line had to hook you. God of War, 40 minutes.
Yes.
That's a lot of room. It's a lot of
Well,
space.
I think one of the reasons that video games now reside in such an important place in our culture is because the pandemic really came along and kind of killed going to the cinema. But people had so much time to sit around, and with Netflix, like you pointed out, or Hulu or Prime or whatever these are, you can just turn those off. But like the experiential part of, especially the tactile part, I can see people putting 40 minutes into a story and then deciding to ditch it, but that's still 40 minutes of play. That's like,
Out of 35 hours of the average length of the game. When it
right,
comes to like the average player finishing the story itself. And then there's like stuff to do after. But, you know,
right.
still 40 fucking minutes that you get to hook
Here's my
someone.
argument to why I got an S. And it's my only argument, and it's a poor argument. It's a poor argument. I admit it's a
Starfield.
poor. No,
No? Okay. Okay, go
part partially Starfield. It's not only Bethesda, um, and the possibility of Elder Scrolls 6. It's also the fact that, like, if you look at the Xbox offering and just in general, and
ahead.
I could say the same thing about the Nintendo offering. For me, I am so devoted to playing fantasy games that I feel like there's more of a plethora of what I would want to play on the Xbox and on the Switch. And the thing is, and this is where you and I have always differed, I'm just not a Final Fantasy fan.
I understand.
It's just like I
Right there. That's
want to be
that
a.
wallpaper is Final Fantasy.
I know. I'm looking at it. I'm just feeling like, but we're shooting. Um, I want to. I want to though. I think the issue is like I don't know where to begin, and then it feels like I have to get the hardware just to begin.
Yeah. Well, the reason that
Like if you were telling me to start playing Final Fantasy tomorrow and you were like, I have to convince Jay with one game to keep playing this RPG that this is the greatest fantasy franchise of all time, which it has an argument for, what game would you push me towards?
that's a good question. That's a very good question because there is one for the taste of everybody out there.
That's
I
the
feel
thing.
like, and since they are not direct sequels to each other, they're all separate stories. You can play them in almost any order that you want. Um, you're an anime fan, right?
Yes.
I'd start with Seven Remake.
Okay. Okay.
Now, that's out on PC, but but then there's this one guy who's really like saved the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the director of 14, you know,
Ah,
and they gave him 16. And so he's gonna make it. And the thing about it is like 11 and 14 are MMOs.
right.
And I would not recommend those for a single player storytelling experience,
Right. Which is
even though
usually what I'm there
14,
for.
yeah, even though 14 would do that for you. But
Right.
14 requires so much configuration for a solo player
Mm-hmm.
that it's there's just too much in the way before you can get into like the story being told. So I would not recommend that to be anyone's first Final Fantasy. Um, if they're not MMO players and they don't
Right.
know what to do with an MMO, right? Or if they don't just feel like dealing with the time constraints of that. Um, but the guy that kind of saved the whole franchise through 14, his name is Yoshi P. He took he took all of his people, all of his big names that were running like the story, the narrative lead,
Mm-hmm.
the music lead. Oh God, Square Enix and their fucking music, man.
Yeah.
Um, I'm actually going to a live concert, but he's running 16.
Are you going
And
in Charlotte or like?
nah, it's gonna be in Phoenix,
Oh,
Arizona.
nice,
Yeah, March
nice,
16th, man. I'm gonna be crying like a little biatch like the
man.
whole time.
And
So
Phoenix is actually pretty cool.
yeah, I
What?
hear good things about it. I hear good things about it. So
Yeah.
you know, um, but I would probably, when 16 comes out, it might be a contender for what Final Fantasy is going to be in the future.
Hmm.
Because up to up to 15 for a good like 30 years, it was turn based, party based, right? And they decided like that's not going to work anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we got a younger audience and we've got like the ability to give you something more active and deliver on the story. We've seen other developers do it very well, right? Like a more action based battle system,
Right.
like God of War, like Horizon Zero Dawn, and they're still delivering on the story. So we've got to like get with the times because we were the pioneers in the story.
Right.
So now 16 is going to kind of like determine where the franchise is going to be, um, moving forward.
So, last question about video games, and then we'll touch on one other thing before we go.
Mhm.
You and I talked a long time ago about how platforms had kind of reached this point, in terms of the hardware and software, where you know they're going to put out cool platform games still, and they're going to put out cool PC games forever.
Mhm.
Where do you think the next big thing for video games is for the where do you think video games go from here? Like where do you think they need to go to get to the next level? Do you think we've reached a level that like, this is the best that we've gotten to or we will get to for a while or what do you think's the next big thing in terms of gaming?
Um, I don't really know. I feel like it's more of a it's a prestige thing now. You know,
Interesting. Yeah.
um, we've got the Game Awards every year, and that's kind of like this industry's Oscars now.
Yeah, and it
You
was
know,
actually marketed pretty well this year and
yeah, it
it
was
was a big
marketed all
event.
right this year. And you know, I think it's just going to be a matter of awareness and generational transition. You
Right.
got a lot of people that are in power in a lot of different industries that they don't appreciate or know the emotional impact of video games, but their
Right.
kids do, and their kids are our age now.
Right.
So it's just going to be like a matter of time.
Mm-hmm.
um I think a lot of people, I think a lot of people feel like games are stale and stuff like that. Like, you got a lot of people on YouTube just kind of like whining and moaning about the current state of video games. And I got to ask them, like, what video games are you fucking playing? Because
Right.
when I look at Steam and I see all the creativity and I see all of the unique ideas that people are putting out, like, why do you keep playing the same kinds of games from the same companies, from the same developers, from the same publishers, and wearing yourself out on these same ass concepts, right?
Right.
I got some friends over at Amazon, and all they play is Madden, and then they bitch about like how video games haven't changed or anything. You're playing fucking Madden. That's why.
Yeah.
Like, step out of your little fucking box and look at all of the great things, like just so many really cool indie titles. Hades,
Yes.
you know um I think that came on Switch, didn't it?
Yes. Hades was on Switch and it's great. Roguelike. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
I have to say this about the Switch. It plays so well. So many different titles and platforms, whether it's isometric roguelites, whether it's first person shooters, whether it's like it does really well for the most part handling all of those
Well,
things.
when you find out how the sausage is made, like, developers have to go very much out of their way to
Yes.
to make things work on the Switch, and Nintendo needs to get some new hardware out
Oh
soon,
yeah.
you know, so
Oh,
that these
it makes
developers are not
DLCs
just like,
impossible.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
absolutely just not working too well on the development side. And the more developers have to go out of their way to make something work on that platform, the more expensive it is, and the less profitable it would be for them. And some there are actual studios out there that their only job is to adapt games for the Switch.
Right.
You're
Oh
paying
yeah.
an entire other studio just to do that, when you didn't have to do that for your studio when you were moving something from PlayStation to Xbox and then from Xbox to PC, right?
Right.
So, yeah, we need some new hardware from Nintendo. But
Yeah.
yeah, these games do play very very well on the Switch. And that does kind of still speak to its original power. You know,
Yeah. So we'll end on this. I kind of brought you on to talk about just 2022 and it's kind of weird ass year that we had and like what 2023 is going to look like and we've kind of touched on a lot of it but what was 2022 for you in terms of what you saw the world turning into where we've been where we're going just what was your general reflection of it.
at least it's not 2021.
Ugh, shit. um
Even though, look, this year was a good year, in
yeah.
my for me
Yeah.
personally. It was not a bad year. you know Whenever I feel down, you know I can just say at least it wasn't 2020 or 2021. You know,
Right.
um, when it comes to the state of the world, you know, um, none of it is very surprising. You know, and it's you could call it a sad state or you could call it a bad state or something like that, but it's just the ebb and flow of humanity.
Right.
It's not, when you're like a fan of history like I am,
Yeah.
you
Like we
kind you
both
kind of
are.
see,
Yeah.
yeah, you kind of know, like, this is kind of the natural ebb and flow of this species across the planet. We're going to have a crisis here, and then when that crisis is done, that another crisis is going to show up over there. you know and I hate to say it like that when I know that there are people suffering all around the world. you know
Right.
and there are people that I know who are suffering all around the world. you
Right.
know but I mean, that's really, you know where it's at for me, in terms of,
Yeah.
like, I can't constantly be heartbroken or angry or shocked all the fucking time when,
Yeah. I think that we're just entering a point, especially after the last couple of years, where like I think a lot of us are starting to feel worn out by a lot, like by the constant need to constantly be up and always be at this kind of emotional high that's kind of impossible to keep going. Um,
Mhm.
I think a lot I think a lot of us have just learned that, like, in this kind of post-pandemic world, that we kind of have to just settle into this post-pandemic world the best we can. And I think, like you said, it could we could be going through 2020 or 2021 again, and we're just not. For all the weirdness that it is just what it is. Um, I think that things actually will start getting better. One thing that you mentioned earlier, and I just had to touch on it because you and I have talked about the economy sometimes, and you mentioned crypto. Um, Crypto's had a hell of a year. Um, do you think it's dead? Like, do you think that this thing's dead, or do you think it will come back? I mean, we have all of these new pieces of technology or these new software tools that are coming up. A lot of them spawned by AI. Do you think certain things are just finally falling away, or do you think I don't know. I think long time
I'm
ago we
waiting
talked
for I'm waiting for blockchain to decouple itself from crypto.
right,
Like, and it's just a matter of someone deciding, this is what I want to use blockchain for. Fuck the crypto part, fuck the NFT part, and just create like a big sea change, you
right,
know? But all these companies, all of these entrepreneurs, all of these people looking for the next big thing can't get their eyes off of the crypto and the NFT. When it comes to crypto, certain currencies, I do see a future for. You
right.
know, I see a future for them. NFTs, listen, these game developers have been trying to push NFTs on the video game population for a long ass time. We knew, we knew SBF was a dumbass. We knew,
Yeah,
like, we were looking at like all of these mainstream people like talking about NFTs, and we already know this shit is stupid. Every
yeah,
gamer knew it, right? So, like, we're kind of like ahead of the world when it comes to their shock in
yes,
NFTs being a scam, being divested from, all these other places and stuff like that. Like, we already do that. We're waiting for someone to use blockchain by itself to do something good, you know,
define good. That's a real deep question. Define good.
something that benefits users, and they don't even know that it's there.
Ah, okay.
Because like when you look at how blockchain is used, like or how blockchain is used for like in conjunction with crypto, like you can use that for secure for a lot of secure stuff, in the future. It's just that like anyone who's a stakeholder, anyone who wants to invest in something like that, they're like, oh, but where's the new cryptocurrency that we can pump and dump? You know, where's the where's the NFTs that you want to sell with these smart contracts and stuff like that? Like,
Right.
no, use blockchain. Like if the ATF had blockchain to keep track of like,
Oh my
you
God,
know,
yeah.
there we go. That's something,
If the
right?
IRS,
If the IRS had blockchain or
yeah,
use that to just keep track of, you know, who was
right.
using the wrong loopholes at the wrong time.
God
You know,
forbid. Um,
God forbid, right? There's a lot that can be done with blockchain. NFTs has got to go.
right.
Has got to go.
What are you looking forward to in 2023?
I already said one of them, Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah.
Um, I'm also looking forward to. I don't know what else.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Man,
I think I probably have a list, but it just went away when you
man,
asked. You know
that
how
that
it is.
happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, like just I think just getting on with life is I think the goal for everyone at this point, you know.
So
Um
what are your particular project goals for 2023?
I mean, I have a lot of I have some books that I have to really write. I have to get a novella series I have to get done. I'm going to try to write a bunch of shorts, but the big thing that I'm going to try to do this year, you mentioned how we need to update the website for the show so we can have a player. Um, I need to update the show. And part of that is changing the format of it. So, the way we do this now, there's a book segment, and then there's the music segment, and then there's that segment that people are listening to right now, the more segment
Mm-hmm.
where I'm talking to you, and then there will be some final words. um I'm really a big fan of Charlemagne the God and his show on Comedy Central, and I think having that kind of like three-person panel for like 90 minutes on Zoom could actually work out a lot better in terms of discussing things going on in the world, discussing books, discussing music, and having more like focus on specific themes instead of just having like a random show that has just random books and then a random band in this genre and then a random band in that genre and then a random conversation. Like the way I set up Pondering the Orb, especially these first 12 episodes, you know how you kind of said you need to make room for yourself to fuck up?
Mm-hmm.
Well, congratulations. You're among the episodes where I'm giving myself room to fuck up. But, one of the things I wanted to do with these first 12 episodes was like, okay, teach myself how to edit video, like really teach
Mm-hmm.
myself how to edit this stuff together, teach myself how to level sound, learn how to light this place, especially if I'm going to have to move soon. I'm going to have to relight everything, learn how to build transitions. I've learned how to build transitions now. Um, I think the big thing now is just trying to get the show into something more digestible than this. And not
Mm-hmm.
that this was bad. Like this was a lot of fun, and this thing keeps growing. My last episode grew from the previous one. Um the
Oh yeah, I
lowest
watched
where
that one 3 times.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Well, okay, I watched it once and then listened to it twice.
Yeah, thank you. It was a really good one. Um but like my lowest rated episode was in October. And I think that's because it was the longest episode, which is why like I'm not cutting this conversation. I should have cut the conversation with John, but I didn't.
It's kind of hard to do that with John.
Well, it's also just kind of like the
It's
changing.
just it's so much fun like talking to him and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, he's
Yeah.
fantastic. But the changing nature of podcasting now, and this is, kind of outside of the show itself.
Mhm.
The changing nature of podcasts is, I think, the days of Joe Rogan having a 3-hour podcast are kind of over. Like if you look at those metrics of those shows that kind of do the 3-hour format, they
Mhm.
lose people after the first like half. They've lost like most of the audience after the first half. And they even go and, we've talked about how you split up shows for YouTube now. People just split up things into like 7 to 6 minute clips, even and also into shorts now. So I really think having like a 90-minute to possibly 120-minute episode is really where the future of the show needs to be. And it's still going to have like book recommendations, and it's still going to have the music and all that, but like the formatting just has to be very different. And it has, if you ever come back on the show, which I hope you do, because there's going to be a video game show. Um,
Oh, I'm there.
but well, when we do that, it'll be you and another person, and we'll actually be able to space this out in a way where everyone will be able to talk, everyone will be able to highlight themselves, because ultimately this show, the goal of this show is two things, and this is where I shoot and really give everyone like, okay, marks, here's how you sell tickets. um I'm trying to get myself over with this show. Obviously I'm not putting on this fucking gimmick, which is hot, to just, like, it is. This fucking red thing's hot and it's ugly. It's like wearing out. Like I'll fucking admit it. Like, the candles are dying here. There's less candles in the last episode. No one knows that. But like, the thing about it is, I want to, of course, get the book. I want to get myself over. I want to get the books over, but I want to get people over. Like, I really want to get you over because I think you're a fascinating person people should know about. I want to get the authors and their books that show up over because I think people should be reading more. I want to try to get these bands and these musicians over because, honest to God, like, I love melodic death metal and I love synthwave, but these people are fucking shit when it comes to marketing themselves, and I want them to get over. Like, I just want people to get over. And I think it gets back to like, and this is going to sound like the craziest bullshit thing I can say, but I'm going to say it, and it's my fucking show, so I can say it. Um, I think the only way you are successful, and this kind of gets back to pro wrestling, it's not just how good you look at the end of it, it's how good the other person looks at the end of it too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if I can't make the people that show up on this thing look better, as good, or better than me by the end of it, then the show is not serving its fucking function. Like, I'm here to make this thing, like, I'm here to ponder this orb, but I'm trying to make this orb better. And
Yeah.
part of that is making people look good, which
Yeah, I
is
remember when we
why,
were at Con Carolinas, and like every time you interviewed an author, you were like, "My job is to get you over."
yeah, well, like,
You know.
they don't fucking get it.
Mhm.
Like, there's some rules now in 2023 that I don't think people get. If you don't mind me standing on my soapbox for a second, like, politics is kind of fucking done and over with. People have been beaten over the head, and it's not even with like wokeness and identity politics. They've been beaten over the head with conservative politics. They've been beaten over the head with class, race, gender politics. We've just had the shit kicked out of us by the media for the last 20 years when
God,
it
yeah, we've
comes.
been exhausted. It's
Well,
been
like,
exhausting.
and like, you and I are not saying this as people who don't care about our vote and who are going
Yeah.
to throw away their vote or don't care about social or economic issues, but everyone's kind of fucking exhausted. And I keep telling
Mhm.
people, like, you need to come from a more positive place going forward, because people have just been just sapped by this negativity, and it's really kind of everywhere. I call it the Mr. Rogers theory. Like, every little kid that I meet, and I meet a lot of little kids now because I have a little kid. They all watch Mr. Rogers and they're the happiest kids in the world, and they all get along and they're all interested in the world and they all want to do things. And I think we all lost that as adults at some point. Like, we don't have an adult Mr. Rogers. The reason why this motherfucking thing's red is because this is my red fucking sweater. I don't have any shoes I put on, but this is my red fucking sweater from Fred Rogers. And like,
It's a
it's
beautiful day in the neighborhood.
exactly, it's a beautiful fucking day in the neighborhood, but we have to build the neighborhood. And I think that's kind of like the hard thing that especially authors don't get. You can't just write a book and expect it to be in a bookstore and then your life to change. You have to build a neighborhood where people go to the bookstore. And part of that is getting yourself over. It's part of you getting your personality over. It's you getting other people's personalities over. Like,
Amen.
you have come on tonight and made me look better because I have someone I can engage with.
Damn, dude, how is that possible for you to look even better than you do now, man?
It is, well, like,
Just
I'm a
dripping
big
that swag, dude.
I'm a big fucking heel. Like, deep down, well, here's the thing, like, you would probably say I'm a nice person, but deep down inside, like, if you want me to really put on a show and act a character and do all that, like, I'm a big fucking heel. Like, I am. And like, I don't want this show to be Jay being a big fucking heel. Like, I wanted this to be Jay being a good host, and then Aaron can be a heel if he wants, or he can be a baby face, or John can come on and be a heel if he wants, or all these people can come on. But the important thing is, I'm giving them a space to be themselves. And that's the hardest thing that you mentioned when it comes to AI. Like, the future really is like, the more you can be, the better you're going to end up being. And God, man, how many people have we met in the creative world that just can't grasp that? Even ourselves, we've struggled with it in our own rights.
I think we know an author. You and I know an author who is probably the best writer that we've ever seen. And I'm not going to name their name because they got books.
Yeah.
They got them published. And
Oh, right.
if that person just knew how to just be him
Yes.
in front of other people and
Yes.
then get in front of other people,
Yes.
he'd be a New York Times bestseller right now.
1,000%. I know who you're
You
talking
know,
about. Yeah. Yeah.
given time and what you're doing, like that's going to happen for you
You know
because you're a
what?
great writer, but like, yeah, a lot of people don't, they think that the writing is going to do it for itself or, and I think that this is something that like a lot of people in Hollywood are doing. Like they're going to make something. It's not going to be popular now, but in like 50 years, people are going to look at it like a classic. And then, like when film buffs and film students mention that one, and when literature buffs and literature students mention that work, they're going to be like, well, you haven't read this,
Right. Well,
you know?
content has the ability now to be evergreen in such a way that we've never seen it before. But Aaron, thank you so much for joining me. We've had a wonderful conversation. We've always had wonderful conversations,
Yeah,
and
it's been a, funny thing is we've talked about doing this, like getting just
for
like if just a
for
bunch of us
years,
sat down and talked,
yeah,
shit's gonna go gangbusters, right? So
yeah.
yeah, this is good stuff, man. Thank you for having.
Well, absolutely, and I think that we have to do this again,
We do.
especially now that you have a microphone.
Yes, right here.
It's a fantastic looking microphone.
Thank you for the Christmas present, bro.
Oh,
It's great.
absolutely.
It's
Oh,
great.
eh, I owe you so much more. But my friend, um, I'm gonna let you go. Thank you so much for coming on Pondering the Orb, and we will be in touch very soon as always.
Yes. And once again, thank you for having me, man.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you for joining me for Pondering the Orb. I will see you soon, but until then, safe journeys. Please check out all the links in the description below and subscribe. Happy New Year, and may 2023 help us find the language to do more for ourselves and each other.